Greetings and welcome, listeners, to Superb Diamond Range, episode 11. Today's date is the 4th of February 2014. Unfortunately, this week, Diamond's unable to make it. He's actually backpacking around Far East at the moment. I think he's in Thailand right now. But I have some great news. We have exciting guests on this week in Arthur Cristian and Fiona Cristian of Love for Life from down under in Australia. Welcome onto the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. So most of our listeners will probably already be pretty familiar with you guys, but for anybody that isn't, if you could just give us a background on sort of what's brought you to this stage and what you've gone through, kind of thing.
Well, to keep it as brief as possible, I guess. Well, Arthur actually sort of started on this path many, many, many years ago because he was always interested in what the truth was and how to find it. So he went through many phases of theosophy and Steiner and all sorts of New Agey sort of stuff, and many, many years of that sort of thing.
1972.
Started
I was 14. 71, 72, I was 14. I was outside my mother's garden crying because of the traumas of my family and the things I went through. And I was saying to the Creator, when my head was zen, and that I want the truth. I want to live for the truth. I just want to know the truth. And then a few days later, I went to a dentist, and there was a book sitting there at the reception area where we were sitting down waiting for our turn to get butchered in the mouth. And it was a book by Edgar Cayce called The Origin and Destiny of Man. And I got the vibe, take me, take me, take me, steal me, steal me, steal me, take it, take it. So I took it and put it in my bag. And at the back of the book, when I took it home, there was a stamp, or I can't remember where it was, front or back, the ADYR bookshop, Theosophical Society, Castlereagh Street in Sydney. So there I went as a 14, 15-year-old. And from there, I started buying many, many, many books. It went into hundreds up until whatever. So
anyway, to keep this not too long, so that was always an interest for Arthur. And then so there was always, and by the time we got together, we'd already knew about Freemasonic stuff, and we were reading all these books, exploring, and lots of different things going on. But I guess what really got us started was we had bought a house on the coast. It was the only house we owned, and anyway, through a series of things that happened with the bank, they ended up switching contracts on us and giving us the contract we didn't ask for, which, okay, you could say that's just a mistake, et cetera, and we'll sort it out. But no, they refused to sort it out. And so that started a long legal process where we refused to pay on it because they'd given, we knew that if we paid anything on it, that would be us honouring the contract. So anyway, we knew basically nothing about the law, et cetera, et cetera. So of course they took us over the coals, and they took the house from us and sold the house for nothing, as they do, and we ended up with nothing, basically less than nothing. And so we just had to struggle from there. But that really got Arthur going, and he said, no, I'm not going to let them get away with this. And that's when we started the Love for Life website, because we started trying to look at what's happening and realized there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people being raped and robbed by the banks left, right and centre, of it, some even with their mortgages in well ahead and stuff, but the bank's still just deciding to go in and take whatever they wanted, basically. So we got into all the legal stuff and the free man stuff and all this sort of thing. And along the way, we met many, many amazing people who would just give us information, and, we would always take the gems of that information, but then often we'd find something that didn't sit right. So we just sort of kept moving on, eventually realized through a lot of stuff, which you can read about on the website, things that we sort of used ourselves as guinea pigs in the law, and went through a lot of processes with that, which was all very interesting. And then we got out the other side and realized that fighting with the law, fighting with the system, battling with it does nothing, because they're quite happy for you to do that, because you're just still exhausting all your energy in the system and keeping it all going. So, all the legal stuff is not a way out of the system. So we started focusing more on, okay, what do we have to do to get out of the system? And more importantly, almost, what is it that's going on in our heads, in our actions, in our thoughts and feelings every single day that we are doing that is perpetuating the system that we live under? Because we're responsible for what's happening in our lives. So if the system's all around us, we're responsible for that. So if we want a way out, we've obviously got to change something in the way we're thinking, the way we're feeling, and the way we're acting. So I guess that is where we are at right now. The pinnacle of where we've come to is trying to get people to see the power of system thought that is controlling their brains, that has been pushed into them since they were very, very young, push all through education. So we are so brainwashed, and most people don't like to think they're brainwashed, but I'm afraid we all are. And it's about trying to once we free our brains of those shackles, then we can see clearly what's happened to us and where we need to go.
Yeah. I would say it wasn't the gangsters. I would clarify, it's a crime syndicate. It's an organized crime syndicate because the law works with them, the political process, the religions, the priesthoods works with it as well. It's all connected. And no matter what religion or faith you're part of, no matter what denomination of law you might want to align with or politics, this rape, pillage, and plunder continues and nothing stops it, right? You would have thought if there was one truth somewhere along the way through all this, there's this recorded history that would give man the real power of truth. You would, as in religion, Christianity, Judaism, Mohammedanism, etc., etc. If there was just one truth, you would think by now we'd all be living in paradise now, but we're not.
Definitely, yeah.
So the point I'm getting at is that the system is it is brutal, and we got to the heart of this and worked out why and how and what's really going on here. So I guess that's where we're up to now and the work we're doing on the internet and on Facebook and elsewhere.
But at the same time as all the work on internet and Facebook, we've realised how important it is to actually start trying to do something, which is why we're starting to, as best we can with what we've got, where we are, do something, which is why we're creating a big food forest out in the back garden, because that's a step to us. That's being able to grow the food that you can eat is one of the biggest steps to moving away from the system. Yet we're still free from water and all other things, but this is our goal, so we can become self-sufficient, so we don't need the system anymore. So then we can wave it goodbye.
Going back to nature, sort of thing, where we sort of belong. Yeah.
So we no longer have to rely on them. They only have us over barrel because we need them, because we don't know how to exist without their electricity, without their petrol, without their cars, without their processed rubbish food in the supermarkets. We don't know how to do any different. That's why we need them, and that's why they've got us, and they know it. So that's why they keep pumping out all the addictive food and soft drinks and this, that, and the other, because it just makes it harder and harder for people to say, I don't need you, because mostly, their bodies, as soon as they're saying, oh my God, I've got to do without McDonald's, KFC, and even just the white bread and all this, their bodies are going, no, I need it. Everything, they're trying to make sure that everything keeps pulling us to them. So we keep relying on them. Yeah, if we don't do something different, then we're stuck here.
It's all reaction to trauma, and it's all basically distraction, because whether it's sport, fashion, drugs, alcohol, it's all trauma-based, and whether it means you have to wake up, I got to keep a roof over my head, I have food on the table, I got to get the kids through the school, on it goes. This keeps you so distracted, so that you don't develop the skills that make you fully responsible to live without the system, because you don't have any skills. You don't even know how to begin to comprehend how we can live without it. So it's all limited liability. You've given up responsibility. You gave it up. And the more we get lost in the storytelling, even with those who seem to be waking up to the deceptions, they still aren't developing the skills that's going to allow them to pull out of the system, because they haven't practiced it. This is why we are in the garden. We practice. We learn how nature works. We're learning how does the soil work? What do we have to do? And the only way you're going to do it is through direct experience. You've got to practice it. So it's a transition. We know that eventually we have to disconnect the internet. We have to walk away from all this. We've got to walk away from all of it. However, what we feel strongly about is that the key to this freedom is that we've got to create that in your life. We've got to make sure that you have the truth, that you have the freedom, you have the joy, that you have the abundance, that you have the do no harm and no loss of uniqueness and originality and no slaves and rulers. Because if you've got all that, then we've got it too. So this is an awakening of breaking away from self-centeredness. because the self-centeredness is about my money, my survival. It's about my land. It's about my I. And this is how we've broken us all down into these individuals. We're all these individuals that all need the system glue to bind us into the system so that we can still get on with each other while we're busy with our individual needs. We got to break that individual need. So now the only way you break that shackle, that intellectual prison, is to serve others, because that's how we practice learning how to be free. Because when you're creating that freedom for others, you've got it too. When you're creating that love for others, you've got it too, because you're already creating it. You don't have to claim it. And that's the deception of the free man movement, the sovereignty movement, and the deception of all through religions and everything, because you are not present to love. You're not present to freedom. You're not present to all these things, these virtues of love they're going to give it, just because we're busy in the shadows of the storytelling, what other peoples have told us how to think and feel about freedom, instead of actually creating it in present sense, doing it, walking the talk, living it, being that.
Yeah, you've got so many of the real freedom truthers, especially in America, but still some here, and they've got their underground bunker, they've got their emergency supplies, they've got their guns, their place is a fortress, and they think they're free. And yet, how are you free if you can't just walk out of your door without having to worry about someone coming after you for what you've got, without having to worry that, someone else down the road's doing such as that? That's not freedom. Being bunkered up in your fortress is not freedom, and sitting there with your gun waiting for invaders, because obviously that's what will happen if the system crashed overnight. Everyone's going to panic because suddenly they're not getting food, water, all those supplies, and it's going to be mayhem and horrible. And so that's why these people are all gunned up and ready to shoot. But it's not freedom. It's the only freedom is when we know we can walk out without fear of harm coming to us, where we can let our children run in the streets and in the fields and off with the paddocks and not even think about it, because we know that no one's going to do them harm. That is freedom.
Like you guys, I would say myself and even Diamond, we're pretty anti-system, and we believe there is no good that can sort of ever come out of it. It's rotten to the core. How can we sort of break free from it? Most people are sort of just waking up with the idea now of sort of becoming free, and what would you say are the steps to becoming free?
There's two facets to this. One is that unless we can comprehend the image power that is the intellectual property of that storytelling, because see, all our lives in the system, we've been educated, we're taught A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Unless we can see the lie for what it is and rat it out, comprehend it, and see the harm that it does, we will accept new forms of storytelling that come along the way and think that they're true. And we're repeating the same mistakes because we haven't ratted out the lie and the liars of those lies. So a lot of our work is about exposing the fiction that is trauma-based, that keeps us locked in. You see, as I was saying before, they've got to break you down as an individual, keep you so lost in storytelling, so that they can then provide you with the system glue to bind you all together as one, where the tiny few have all the power. Okay? So now that the system is collapsing as we know, and the people behind it are doing that, they're creating a new version of the system, which is the New World Order, but now it's going to be under a new feel-good, feel-God oneness guise, cosmic, galactic, etc., etc. And if we can't see, if we don't recognize the methods used to trick us, we will fall into the new system and continue the same problem that we've always had since this problem started in ancient Egypt. So that's one facet. You've got to recognize the lie and the liars, right?
Well, I was just thinking, it's like people like to say, oh, you look at the news or something and, basically you've got to turn it all on its head to find out what the truth is. It's like we don't realize, people know we're being manipulated, but mostly they have no idea the extent to which they're being manipulated. And really we are these puppets on strings, and the people up at the top of the system are just these game players moving us at will. For example, Hannah, who lives with us, he was telling me the other day that she heard something about here in Australia, apparently there's been some law passed that they're allowed to release some sort of effluent or pollution or something into the Great Barrier Reef. Now, on the first level, you can look at this and go, oh my God, that's dreadful. They're causing environmental disaster. This is the Great Barrier Reef. This is, this is our Aussie whatever. Icon. It's one of the icons of Australia, one of our biggest tourist things, et cetera, et cetera. How can they do that? They're such bastards. And yet, do you know what? We're just playing into their hands when we act like this, because the whole reason they have done that is to get us to react like that. It's like, press that button. It's like, you talk about pushing someone's buttons when you press their emotional points, whatever. They know how to push our buttons. So they're getting us more up in arms. How could they do this to our great Aussie icon? But in fact, that's just more of the manipulation that Arthur was talking about to get us to go towards this new world order, because it's more as we go, look, this government is dreadful. This system is dreadful. Look what it's doing. Look what it's allowing us, despite the fact the Great Barrier Reef was ruined years ago by these starfish that are in there. But, it's like you got to look back another couple of levels of deception to get past the obvious one.
Sure.
Yeah. We need to go deeper into this explanation of what we're talking about of image power and brainwashing and storytelling, and show how it applies in everyday practical sense, so we can give some, give the listeners, the viewers, some, because there may be a lot of new people now, Stephen, through your networks that have been, exposed to this work. But
Sure.
Going back to what I was saying, there's two facets. There's that facet. So you've got, just to circumscribe it briefly, you've got to be able to rat out the lie and the liars, so you can see it for what it is and know that the harm that it does to you. The other facet to this is the practicing. How do we practice living free, being free? Because, you see, the thought of freedom is not freedom. The thought of truth is not truth. The thought of God is not God. The thought of Jesus is not Jesus. There's just an idea made up by others telling you how to think and feel about that. But you're not living it. You're not being present to it. It's not in your life. So you've got to walk the talk. You have to live free. You have to act free. You have to set it into motion. And that's the true power. We have to set freedom into motion in our everyday practical sense of our lives. When they did 9/11, or they now doing with the Barrier Reef and all the fracking that's now going on across Earth and the chemtrails, what is happening here? Everybody is reacting. And in reacting, all that trauma, all that energy feeds the system. It gives them power, and they use it. They use it against you and everybody else. While everybody is so distracted with all the causes and all the issues, they're not thinking remedy. They're not setting into motion their freedom to live without the system. It's beyond their comprehension because they're too busy, distracted, added to with their sport and their fashion and their drugs and the going to their supermarkets to buy their food. They don't know how to set full liability, full responsibility into motion. They're still under limited liability. They still need to suck on the nipples of the private corporations for everything they need. So the system is entertainment. You're entertained. And that's what storytellers do. And we'll talk about Alice in Wonderland. It's a wonderful analogy that explains this image power and how they deceive us in all this stuff. Because if we do not comprehend that, we cannot get our heads out of that, we'll never break the spell, because we've been taught the spell, to be under the spell, under their spell, and we haven't developed the skills, the everyday practical skills that allow us to just pull away and stand on our own feet on land where we take care and nurture for the land, and where we take care of the water, we take care of the food, we take care of the creatures, and we learn to live like that again.
Because we've got to the point where most people can't begin to imagine surviving without all those things of the system, and that's a major part of what keeps people there, because it's just that fear of, oh my God, what happens if I haven't got a house? What happens if I can't go to the supermarket? I can't feed my children. I can't, it's all this fear of, and really the sad thing is we actually are nature, we're living, nature's living, all the stuff we surround ourselves with is dead. And yet we feel more closely aligned with that than we do with nature. And we're taught that, be careful out there. The wilderness is a scary place. You might get lost. You might get hurt. You might not have water. There's scary creatures that might bite you. And, we've been taught to fear being out with what we naturally are and who we naturally are. We're breathing. We're living. So is all of nature. everything of the system is dead, and yet we're petrified of nature, what we are, and in love with the system, which is killing us.
There's going back to this thing. There's two realities, right? One that doesn't exist. It's a make believe reality. It has some semblance of reality, but it's just an apparition. It's sort of there but ain't at all, which is what everyone calls the matrix. And then there's the real one, which is sensory. Sensory meaning you have direct experience: touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see. You don't need to be educated about the tree or the bird or the wind. All you have to do is, when you create children, when we create our children, is allow them to have the direct experience, and all the information that makes up the tree, all the information of the bird and the wind and all the relationship of everything of that ecosystem is available to our children. And we don't have to educate our children about it. They've already got that direct experience there. That information's there for them. And our children can create unique dreams, unique thoughts that makes them original, that makes them give them purpose and inspiration to co-create and expand nature, because that is the true painting, because we are the artists of the painting of nature. That's what we're supposed to be painting. That's the real one. The false one is the one of the system, and we've been taught to paint as the artists of the system. So all our lives are living for the system, which is just a shadow. It's like a ghostly image superimposed over the real one.
Well, it's make-believe, isn't it, with props and characters, and, it's a little place, and we all run around acting our characters.
Yeah, so I guess that's what we try to do, is to show the distinction between that. So people, see, the thing is, we say to people, does a child need to first be taught about the tree? Like, for example, when we say to people, that over there is a gum tree, and it's this species, and it's that, and it's this color, green and brown, and it does this and it does that, and it's part of this and part of that. If we fill our children's heads up with that, and they actually trust us, because being their parents, they learn to trust you, and they're innocent, and they don't know the idea of lies and all that yet, because they haven't really got the grasp of this kind of deception. So if they learn to believe that, if they learn to believe what the storytelling of the tree that we gave them, when next they go to nature and they have a direct experience with that life form, that sensory life form, their head could be so spinning with the storytelling, what we told them about that tree, that we've actually trained them to disconnect from sensing the information that the tree is sharing with them. Right? So here's where the Freemasonic satanic world comes into it, because that's exactly what they've done with everything that makes up our lives in the system. We've been educated. We've been taught how to think and feel about everything that we're seeing, that we're sensing. Now, that's like taking a hood. We call it, as in priesthood, when you take a hood or a potato sack and you put it over that tree to shroud it in darkness, right? Because that darkness is the storytelling we have put in our kids' heads about the tree. So that's priesthood, brotherhood, livelihood, childhood, right? And we have been hooded with everything, because the whole education system is that. It's all explained to us. Now, children don't need anything to be explained to them. They've already got direct sensory experience. They've got eyes to see. They've got feelings to sense, to feel. They've got smell to smell. They've got all kinds of sensory things. And the direct experience of that is what gives them the sensations that forms the inspirations and the aspirations of their purpose as the artist for the dream of life that is nature, and their connection to it. Now, if those type of children were brought up in nature, none of them will know anything about ABC, 1, 2, 3, compass square, mathematics, geometry, and all the books and everything written in everything that comes out of the system. They won't have any concept of it. It will be beyond their comprehension. And if they came across it, it'll be like gobbledygook Martian talk. It'll go right over their heads, like as if they're Martians coming from another world.
Which, of course, is why the system places such huge emphasis on education. You've got to learn to read and write, You can't function without it, which is true. In the system, you can't function very well if you don't read and write and know some basic maths and things. But that's why they push it so hard, because if they don't teach us to read and write, everything of the system will wash over our heads, because we won't be reading the instructions, reading all the books.
But how are we going to communicate? How are we going to communicate?
Exactly.
You need a language. How are we going to communicate, Fee?
Well, the dogs seem to manage. I noticed that with our dogs. Like, they can walk up to each other, couple of sniffs at each other, and you can see they've got all the information they need, and they move apart You know, they really, in a few seconds, they've sensed everything from each other, and they've got it.
And that's exactly, and that's the point. We actually have already got everything we need to communicate, to live, and be powerful without doing harm. Our senses are phenomenal. You know, we have been shut down. We've been squeezed so far down that the only operating parameters of our full potential in the system is like the little gap between your thumb and your forefinger. If you can just get a little tiny bit of space, that's the progress of civilization, technology, and everything. That's as far as we can go.
And again, that's the education, because the education is all about logic and reason, and do not trust your senses
within the constructs.
Exactly.
Only
intuition, you know, you can't trust that. You got to, whereas in fact you get it, everyone gets it. You meet someone, you get all these feelings about them in a second, and it's like whether you trust that or you go on from that. But the education is all about teaching us to distrust our senses.
And the senses. Oh, sorry, go on.
It's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, obviously you're talking about, you know, the sort of potential of mankind, and, you know, obviously that we're going through a lot of, I mean, it's been going on for a long time, but obviously the water's poisoned, the air's poisoned, the food is poisoned. You know, do you feel that it's really difficult in the climate now to kind of, for us to reach our potential? In terms of health and being how we can be and operating how we should be operating.
Nature is information, right? In its pure, sincere form, when we have direct experience with the wind and the rain and everything, we get the truth about everything. All our ancestors are actually there in the water too. It's all around us. It's sensory. Because we're talking about a living creator in present sense. You can sense it. They are corrupting everything. Now, the people at the higher levels know the truth about what we're saying here. The fact is this, the chemtrails is to corrupt the water. Why? So we can't sense the true information that's there, because it's like, you know, you're watching television, the signal's not right, and you're getting a hazy, ghostly image, right? It's all been distorted, or the music or the sound has been corrupted and you can't hear it clearly. The chemtrails is that. The corruption to the rivers is that. The corruption to the fracking in the ground is that. Everything they're doing is to corrupt us so man can't sense the truth about who we are, so we don't wake up again. They don't want us to wake up, because if we wake up, we don't need them anymore, and it's goodbye the system, which is what they need for us to give them all the power, because without the system, they've got nothing.
And they're dumbing us down more and more and more. I mean, I just read something on the toilet before in a child's book thing saying, in Mexico City, and this was an old book, the air is so bad now that if you're out and about, it's like smoking 40 cigarettes a day, you know, and it's like places like that and LA and stuff where the oxygen levels are getting lower and lower. Not only do people get sick from that, but it dumbs down their brains as well. And that's all part of, like the fluoride in the water and all the chemicals, all the stuff in the food, everything is about that. So yes, all we can do at the present time is to try and do the best we can to, you know, detoxify our bodies. That's why we eat a raw living food diet as much as possible from the garden, though we still buy some stuff, because it's a way of, you know, trying to counteract what's going on, what they're doing to us. And it certainly does. Once you start clearing out the fluoride from the water, the chlorine from the water, once you start clearing out all the chemicals, additives, etc., from your body, you do start to think more clearly and see more clearly. Plus you get fitter, you get stronger. You find you can, especially when you're eating raw, you can stand more heat, you can stand more cold and still do stuff. Because one thing I always notice, especially with the young people, because they obviously target the young people more and more each generation, it's sort of, you know, the rebellion is, hey, I'm going to get drunk, I'm going to take drugs, you know, because one, it's kind of cool and I'm showing that I'm rebelling. But actually, you're not rebelling by doing that. The best rebellion you can have against the system is to have your body as clean and healthy and fit as you possibly can.
Clear.
Because if you do, you're an enemy to them, because you can see all what they're doing. Getting drugs, taking drugs and drinking and all that is just feeding into their hands. They love it because you're just, you know, you're just off in la la land. Oh man, that was cool. I think I'll go skateboarding now. I think, well, you know whatsoever. So it's like, but you're right. So all we can do at the moment, obviously we're far, far, far from where we should be in a pristine sense, is do the best we can with our bodies and our brains, and then set about what we can do to clean up the mess. So hopefully our children, then our children's children and children's children, maybe by the time we get a couple of generations down the track, there'll be more and more, if we've cleaned up and cleaned the air and stuff, being able to return to their potential. I just suspect it'll take a few generations, because we've got to let the, I mean, you know, if we could stop all the polluting overnight, I don't think it would take long for Earth to start, you know, to heal itself. It has an incredible,
it's very, very rapid.
But we've just got to stop putting, it's like your body. Your body can heal if you just stop putting the rubbish in. You've just got to give it that chance. Earth can heal if we just stop putting the rubbish in.
It comes back to full liability, full responsibility. The system is controlling the water that comes to your life. It controls literally the air that's now coming to your life, so they can do what they like with it. It controls the food that comes into your life, right? It controls even the land you're walking on. So we're so deeply compromised. We haven't been given full disclosure as children, idiot-friendly. I call it idiot-friendly full disclosure, because if we comprehended what was being done to us as children and they told us the truth, we would say no thanks, because we would see the harm. So they have to come up with ways to trick us, because we are the ones doing it. They don't do it. They are. This is Adam and Eve and the apple and the snake here. They are the snake that provides you the apple. They give you the temptation and you take it. And that is what we set into motion, because we man are the only ones that can set thoughts into motion. All thoughts are images or pictures, if you want to call it. We are responsible. You cannot turn around and blame them.
Yeah, they haven't got a gun at our heads. They dangle the carrot.
Exactly.
So it's up to us whether we go for the carrot or not.
When you wake up and you know who you really are, they back off, because they don't want to process the curse. And this is what's behind all this. And this is one of the things that we do, or this is what this man does, because the perpetrators, once I zoom in on them, I make them and their family and all their loved ones process the curse of their own making. I don't create the curse, and I don't wish upon them the outcomes or what comes of them processing it. But I give them no way out, because what happens here, which is what's had us also deeply compromised, is that because they control everything of the system, and they make you work. You have to go and work and use money to get access to the water and to have use of the land and have use of the air and all the other natural things of nature that already are freely available to all of us. We have to break that presumption, break that spell. So we've got to take matters into our own hands and be responsible without reacting to trauma. So what we do is that we make them process the curse. Now, how does that work? It works like this. We honor their free will. They have the right to dream whatever they dream and to set into motion those dreams and allow them to experience the outcomes of those dreams that they have created. If that means that they want to act as a police officer or a politician or a representative of a private corporation that wants to do immense harm, they have that right. So what we do, we allow them to do that, except we make them experience the outcomes of their making. We use the free will and that love, because this is a peaceful way of doing it, force them to experience it and give them no way out until they make whole with everyone they sought to harm. Right?
It's like if someone's dealing with a bully, and so the bully's there and they're trying to use their bully tactics and their intimidation tactics against you. Now, the choice you have, if you process that curse, because that behavior of theirs is a curse, because there's no love, there's nothing in it. If you take that on by becoming fearful, by doing what they say, by allowing yourself to get overtaken by them and, oh God, I've got to do what they say because they're going to get angry with me, they're this, that and the other, you're basically processing their curse. But if you just say, oh, well, you're going to do what you like, that's fine, I've got no control over that and I'm not going to let what you do get me down, you're not processing their curse, because you're not letting their behavior affect your life and how you are and what you do. You're still taking responsibility for that. When you behave like that, as most people know, any bully is going to back off because they have no power with you. And that's the same that Arthur's talking about on a much larger scale with the system. The system can throw the force they like at you. But if you are saying, well, that's fine, you can do what you like, but
that includes kidnapping our body. If they want to kidnap our body, they can.
Yeah, I'm not going to allow you that to intimidate me, to threaten me, and to change how I behave and how I act. I'm still going to take responsibility for my life. That way you're pushing their behaviour back on them, saying, you keep it. I don't want it.
See, they know the truth of this stuff, right? Because all men are equal. No man is master of another man, right? The base lie of all lies is that some are more equal than others and that some have more power and authority over others. And the only way they can do it is to set up a body of information, which is all lies, which is Wonderland, and get you to become Alice inside the Wonderland so that you perform the storytelling of that Wonderland where the characters have higher standings, higher responsibilities, they're kings and queens and you're a peasant or whatever in the storytelling. And inside that is how they use that kind of deception to deflect the curse so that they think that they will not have the curse come back upon them and on their children, all their loved ones and all their beneficiaries. When you break that presumption and you obliterate it without you reacting to trauma, the critical factor here is we must not react to trauma, meaning you don't take guns into your hand, you don't take knives and weapons, you don't take hatred, and you don't be like them in any other way. You forgive them. You give them that love because that's who we truly are. You no longer have to fight for your own life because when you remember who you are, they can't take it from, even if they want to take the body and kill it. You will still live. I know this is crazy stuff, but it's not. You truly do live, but you will not come to it unless you break out of the storytelling, break out of the spells of Wonderland to start to remember who we are. So one of the things we do, what I'm getting at here is that we make them process the curse. We make them take on the processing of all the information of the lie that has a benefit from our life energy and use and abuse us of our life energy. What we do, we give them no escape from it. So in this case, I have no story in my thinking of that dream that I've created for that family. If I target them because I know that they tried to harm us or others that I care about, I contact that man or woman and I tell them, you are now processing this curse. You will not be able to break this curse of your making. There's no ritual. The more you ignore it, you amplify it. The more that you try and do something else, you're amplifying it. You will not escape until you make whole with those that you sought to harm to. Now, I mean it. I blatantly mean it. I contemplate on this every day. I don't feed it with hatred. I don't feel it with trauma. I don't feed it with any kind of harm to them. I don't dream for them to the harm. I give them the freedom to experience the outcomes of their making. Let them experience the consequences they're making. And I say this without gloating, but I know of at least 20 families now been obliterated by this. They're completely obliterated of their own making. The first thing that happens to this man, I feel terrible gut feelings come over my body. And I have this immense sadness because I sense another brother lost their way and committing spiritual suicide like this and destroying themselves. This is the only way you break their arrogance. This is the only way you break down the veneer of invincibility and power and all this stuff. This is the only way, and this is the most peaceful, loving, do no harm method that you can use. And this is our true power. So we say to people, you don't need to take guns in your hands. You don't need to fight these people. This is not a fight. We're not at war. That's their war. We don't get caught up in it. But when we remember who we are and we use the trauma of their making against them, of their own choice, the only way they're going to stop is to learn from their own mistakes and realize that their future is dependent on the goodness of everyone around them and that everyone else must have that freedom and joy and abundance too. They can't sit inside their prisons because they're like the old days of the castles, the landlords, the land barons. They had their moats and they had all their knights and all that to protect it because they know the revolt of the peasants and you're going to come in and attack them because of how they've been, raped, pillaged and plundered and been used as serfs and commoners, and having to tithe, 20, 30, 40, 50% or whatever back to their landmaster. Just like now, which is no different. And that's common law for you. That's actually the basis of common law. So the point I'm getting at is that you've got to get past all this stuff. You've got to see for what it is. You've got to know for what it is and not be frightened of any of this stuff and learn to face it. You've got to face hell. You have to face it.
Well, we've got to be able to go in and clean it up. If we're trying to avoid it, it's like you've got a dirty house and the more you don't clean it, the dirtier it's going to get. But, at some stage you got to pick up your dustpan and broom and your mop and go in there and deal with it. It's just the same. We can't turn away and pretend it's not happening. We've got to get our mops and brooms out and start cleaning, and that means cleaning thought processes as well and cleaning emotional dependencies and cleaning, all those things that keep us locked into trauma. So it's a physical cleaning and a brain cleaning as well.
So it's everyone around us that makes slaves of our children. If they're all serving the system and the peer pressure of all that being what it is, and we say no, They say, oh, these people are crazy. They're nuts. They're psychopaths. They need to be drugged. They need to be counseled. There's something wrong with them, right? You have to break all that presumption. The critical thing is that this is not about becoming a rescue of all these people. We're not here to save anybody. You can't save anyone. All you can do is force people to take responsibility and be accountable for everything they think, feel, and do, because they're setting that harm into motion. The only way they're going to learn to wake up is to stop it. The best way to make them stop it is let them experience the outcomes. See, in the system, they have all these shields that they use to hide behind while they come out from behind the shield with their lance and their spears and their swords to attack you with. So the police officer can come into your life and say, you have just been speeding 80 kilometres in a 40k zone and make that claim, right? Now, there's no injured party. No one's been harmed. There's been no crime committed. You've had not a bad thought. And yet there's a stranger comes in your life telling you that you've just committed something. And if you react to that claim, if you react by going to their court, or if you accept that, you're actually taking on the curse, because that claim is the apple of the snake, asking you take on the processing of that curse, because it means you have to then labor or use your labor, the life force energy of your labor, to serve that obligation. This is no different to tithing. You must work and provide us 40% of your apples, right? If you can comprehend that, this is at the heart of the system, because it is the reaction to trauma that keeps us in the system and keeps us tithing to our masters. It keeps us doing everything for those that Fiona pointed out, the master puppeteers up pulling at the marionettes of everyone in the system. We've got to break that, cut those strings, cut all those ties.
At the beginning of, most of our lives, obviously there is, a lot of people call it like the foundation document, obviously being the birth certificate, where we sort of first logged into the matrix almost. And, obviously it creates like a sort of, some people call it legal fiction. I think you did a video one time regarding the name being the mark of the beast, and a little bit on copyright. I just wanted you to sort of talk a little bit about that, really, just to get a better understanding.
The name is the mark of the beast, the straw man that identifies your slave status in the system. We created that about 2 years ago, literally February 2011, is it? 2012. Yes, it's 2 years ago in the system. And which I suggest for those new, maybe we can put the links up to this videos when we put them up and people can go and watch it, and so they can get an idea, because really the heart of that video is about the very thing I'm talking about, the curse. Because the name is a lie. The sound that came out of your in the real world of sensory reality, we create dreams for our children, and we set into motion all the information that fills that dream. Imagine the dream as a bubble. We feel that dream with all the information that forms the child, and then comes the moment when we come together to explode the egg and sperm into that dream that creates the manifestation, the physical form of that dream that is our child. Now, today, most of us aren't dreamt like that, because usually we're dreamt by loneliness, boredom, horniness, drugs, rape, and children are created like this. And I'd like to bring this up again later on, if you could remind me, in case
Sure.
I so far, because I talk about this thing called the sandpit. I'd like to bring this up later, because I don't want to derail from this subject and come back to this thing called the sandpit, because that's how they created us. We're created out of this thing called the sandpit that I use as an analogy. But the thing is that the name, let's go back one step here. The sound, that is the song that came from your parents to identify, and I don't like to use the word identity, but we'll just say you know what I'm talking about, to recognize the creation, the sound that came out of their names to say, oh, this is Stephen, right? That is the living man of that living dream that they dreamt for. That's who you are, right? But they were conned. Your parents were conned, as our parents were conned, as we were conned when we created our children, to create a shadow, a reflection of that living song And we call that intellectual property. And we gave it a name, Stephen, and was recorded in the alphabet language books. That record is not you, because that record, that bond, that trust in the system of commerce is not the living man. That name is the vessel that you rent, that your parents were taught to rent. Because we're the only one who can, we are the puppet master, we're the masters of our own puppet. So we're the ones who has to perform the name. So if I'm the police officer pulls you over and says, I want to see your driver's license, for example, you pull out your driver's license, right? You are now the representative of that driver's license. Now, I can't talk to your driver's license because it can't talk to me because there's no life there. There's no living man there. I need the actor, the man, to perform for it. So the police officer says to the living man, can you please give me your driver's license? And so the man who's not conscious of it says, yeah, is this you? Oh, yes, it's me. Well, here you are. And here's the curse. And here's the lie. Because never can I talk to Stephen through your driver's license or your birth certificate or your car registration or your contracts with your electricity and gas and internet and telephone and with your mortgage and everything else. It's impossible. None of that exists. It's all make-believe, pretending. But while we believe that that is who we are, we use that to set it into motion in the system of Wonderland, and we are now Alice through the looking glass of that storytelling, because the body of information that makes up Wonderland is the education they gave us with all their rules, regulations, rituals, procedures, conditions, contracts, all their recorded his story, her story, which is history, and everything else that makes up our education with all the science and all the quantum physics and everything else, you name it, no matter what's come at you through the system, which is this thing we call the sandpit, isn't real. It's all made up. And we're lost acting. So the birth certificate is an abomination. And we have corrupted who we are when we believe that it is real and that it is who we are. And while we perform it, we are doing harm. Because to have the driver's license means we've had to harm nature to create it. And to have a man believe it, we've had to destroy man as well.
To have man accept the harm done to nature means we've destroyed man as well.
Exactly.
Otherwise, he wouldn't accept it.
Exactly. Because what a driver's license? But the remains of a tree, the remains of soil, the remains of the original life forms that had a purpose for the dream of life, that had to be harmed, dug out, destroyed, and turned into dead things that don't have life there. We can't eat it. It doesn't do anything. Nothing of nature needs it to exist. There's no purpose there. It's completely dead, lifeless. So this is the lie and this is the curse. And so the name is the mark of the beast is the fiction of a fantasy that we are performing. I use this a lot in our work, and we'll explain it here because this probably will open up this thing about image power, and we can get into image power from here. We use Alice in Wonderland a lot because I think it's a very profound analogy. Imagine opening up the book of that story of Alice in Wonderland, and you're my child, Steve, and you're sitting on my lap. And for the first time, all the pictures come zooming into you as I read to you the English language or whatever alphabet language you want to use. And here you are, the cryptography, the phonetics, the etymology of the storytelling as I'm reading it to you helps you to build up the fantasy so that after days and weeks of this repetition, I can come home one day. And I can't even get through the front door anymore because apparently you've gone and turned all the furniture into the props and settings of Wonderland. You've moved the cupboards and tables and chairs, and you've gone into your bedroom and pulled out all your toys, and you've even dressed yourself up as Alice. And I'm calling her, Stephen, what's going on? I need to get inside. I got to get inside. Dad, I'm playing. What are you doing? I'm playing. I need to get inside. I live here too. And your brothers and sisters are coming. Mum's coming home too. We need to get inside. I go around the back door. I can't even get in through the back door. I can't even get in. Dad, I need to keep playing. No, you've got to stop playing, Stephen. I need to get inside. So the thing is that all the time that you are performing Alice, I can't sense Alice. I will never sense Alice or Wonderland. All I can sense is you. I can smell, touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see you. All the time you're in performance using the characters and props of Wonderland, you're lost in that storytelling. And when you're lost in that storytelling, you will disconnect from the reality of all the living around you, including me as your dad. And I'm saying to you, please come out of the storytelling. I need to be in the living world with you because I live in the order of this house. I have a role to play in this house as you do. We all do. We're here to learn and live together. Now, you imagine all of us being brainwashed in the education system. All of us have an Alice, there's our birth certificate, and that the system is Wonderland. And we're destroying everything of nature that is our home, our house, and we can't even get inside it because they're controlling us through all the laws and the statutes that controls the water, that controls all the services and the benefits of everything that comes into our everyday life. You see, so unless we wake up from the storytelling and snap out of that spell, snap out of it, we continue doing it, which means that a man who comes along brainwashed as the police officer, who believes in the storytelling of everything he was taught that makes up the body of information of a police officer, and he's the representative of all that contract law, or even if he was a peace officer, he won't see you, the living man. All he sees is the fiction that is your driver's license because you are performing in the world of their statute laws. He can't see you, the living man, and he can't see the harm he's causing you by lying to you. And he can't see when he drags you off to jail or to his police station or puts you into the courts. And neither will the barristers and the lawyers and the judges and the political systems, all that. No one will see you, the living man, because you do not exist.
They're trained, actually, aren't they? You can tell the way they speak to you. They're trained not to sense you. You know, that's why you get that sort of robotic, the way they answer your questions, the way they talk. It's like they are not allowed to get a sense of you and respond to that, because if they do, then it's all undone, because obviously, you know, then you start weighing up the situation and what happened. That's not part of their training. Their training is just, that's the law, he's done this, that's that, boom.
That's the beast for you. Yeah. This is the beast, and the mark of the beast is your name, because the name is you setting into motion the name that becomes not only the birth certificate, you're now renting that, but you're also now going to use it, that name, as the mark for your driver's license, for the lease on the house, for the contract you have for the internet and the telephone, and on it goes. And you get so bound into that.
And while you're using that name, you cannot be free of the system. And this is the biggest stumbling step. And so many people are, what happens if I don't want to vote? Do you think I could just, say, right, and ask them, I decline, or this, that, and the other. And I want to be free of this, and this of the system, but I still want to use my credit card. And I still want to get my bit of land and pay land tax. It's like, well, as soon as you do that, as soon as you're using that name that binds you to the system, you're admitting that you want to be part of their system, because you're taking their benefits, you're taking their services. You cannot decide, I want these bits of the system, but I don't want those bits, which is what the freedom truth thing's all about. They want to stay in the system. They want to have their house and their company, this, but they're saying, no, I want to be free of your laws. It's not possible. The system is theirs. It's like playing the game of tennis or something. The rules of tennis are the rules of tennis. If you want to play tennis, you've got to abide by the rules. If you want anything of the system, you've got to abide by the rules of the system, because you're admitting that, they're your masters and you want their benefits. And because you want their benefits and services, you'll do what's required of you to keep that. You can't play half and half. And this is a big thing that people find very scary, because, it comes down to the full responsibility. If you say no to the system, that's it. It's just you and whoever else is around you. There's no one to run to if things if things get hard. You've got to deal with it and sort it out yourself.
Yeah. Like I say, if I say that life form to you is a daffodil and it's yellow, and you believe that, I've committed a lie. I've committed fraud. Because did that life form tell you that it was a daffodil and it was yellow? So in the same form, the education system that tells us that this name is our driver's license and this name is that, this is committing fraud. We're all lying. Now, the worst thing about it all is that while we are entertained, while we are performing that entertainment, while we are allowing ourselves to be entertained by this kind of information, we are consumers destroying the living reality of that is nature. We are the ones responsible for destroying everything, because we need the dead corpse fiction. We need the legal fiction to entertain the addiction that we have to that storytelling of Wonderland. We do not want to give up Alice, our performance of Alice. We want to continue. So that's why we have cities, why we have concrete, plastic and steel and internet and telecommunications and all these things. And on it goes, all that entertainment, because it means we're dealing with the living dead. We have the living dead, because when I come home and I say, Stephen, please stop playing that game and I need to get inside the house, you are the living dead, because you're no longer sensing the living around you. You've just shut us off, because you're lost in the performance. You're in the fantasy.
You're putting all your energy into something that's dead, which is the image of Alice.
And at the cost of the living around you that you care about. So in the same way, while we wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, and all our life is setting into motion the storytelling of the legal fiction that is the name, we are the consumers, the destroyers of nature all around us. Because it's unavoidable. You need to destroy the living world that tells us the truth about everything. We have to corrupt all that to construct the dead things. You know, for an example, what is the Supreme Court? What is it? What's the High Court? What is the government and the Parliament House? What is paper? What is all the scribbles and everything written on paper or digital, electronic data and all that? What is it? It's dead. There's nothing there. Hello, Supreme Court, please talk to me. Anybody there? Nobody there. It needs someone to come forward as a representative of the Supreme Court. That's the same as you who come forward as the representative of Alice, because Alice ain't there. I will never, ever sense Alice, but I can sense you. You see, you are present with the presence of life, but Alice is not present with the presence of life. So we need to use the presence of life to destroy the presence of life in everything around us, including us. So we have to create a dead corpse fiction in everything around us to perform Wonderland, to perform the system.
To create the props.
To create the props and everything else. And we're so used to it, we think that we cannot live any other way. We think that money is real, but money doesn't exist. There's no direct experience of money. People say money's real. Well, is it? Bring forward the first party that's money. Oh, here's a coin. But that's a destroyed tree. That's a destroyed mountain, or that's a destroyed soil.
It's got an image attached to it.
It's got an image attached to it. This is image power. Where is money? I want to have a direct experience with money. Hello, money, please talk to me. Are you there? I want to talk to money. I don't want to talk to a representative of money. I don't want to talk to Stephen. I want to talk to Alice. Hello, money. Are you there? Hello, Galactic Federation. Somebody there? Hello, alien shapeshifters. Anyone there? Hello, Jesus. Hello, Jesus. Hello, Bible. You see, it takes a body of information to create a his story. It's not history. It's a his story, her story. And then you need performers to represent that his story. That is Wonderland. As you are my child sitting on my lap, I have to get you to become the representative of Alice. I got to get you lost in the performance of Alice. So I've got to give you a body of information so well written so you can experience the fantasy of all the story, because what is going on here? And I explain this another way. Alice is a lie. Every lie needs a time code. You cannot create a lie without a time code. So Alice needs a past and a future. And we can set the story of Alice on her journey through the story Wonderland by acts. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4. So you can be lost in the storytelling representing Alice because you're performing Alice. And so you project the past because you've now remembered all the information of Alice to project it into the future. So you can continue performing Alice because you've gone into the household living room and sitting room. You've moved all the tables and chairs and all the props and everything. You've taken all your toys out and you've gotten clothes out and you're dressed up in Alice and you've got the Mad Hatter's Tea Party there. And you are now lost in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, projecting the past into the future so that in present sense, you've given up who you really are. Because all this only happens in present sense, because the past and the future don't exist. They never will.
Sort of when you just mentioned about giving up who you are, it just made me think of, obviously, men have different capacities. So, you got the man on the street, the everyday guy, and then you've got the man that, might go to work and put on a uniform. And then obviously with the uniform, they're completely different. They change. And I just wondered what you think of that, about, people that sort of buy into the job, the uniform, the title that they've been given, and how they behave whenever that goes
This is
on.
all reaction. This is all reaction to trauma. All of it. And we'll go. Let's explain this another way too. For example, and there's another video we put out called "Under the Spell of Intellectual Property." It's the Dream of Life Part 6, Under the Spell of Intellectual Property. We go into this in great detail and explain this, but I'll touch on it. The letter A. Where in nature can children not exposed to A, or exposed to anyone who's exposed to A, can go in nature and learn about A and the information that makes up A? Where can they go and learn that? Or B or C, or 1 or 2 or 3, or compass and square? Where can they learn this without you or anyone else who's already been got at having to explain it to them? Nowhere. There's nowhere, because it doesn't exist. It's made up. So where in nature can you go and learn about Alice if you haven't been exposed to Alice or any of that information that makes up Wonderland without someone else having to explain it to you? Again, you sat on my lap and you got exposed because I've already been exposed to it and got at. So I can pass on the addiction of that corruption of a lie that is a lie to you. And I haven't given you full disclosure that I'm lying to you. Now, the education system is the same thing. So if you're going to believe in A, I have to put you under a spell. Now, the letter A is nowhere to be found because it's not a sensory life form. A can't be eaten. We can't breathe it. We can't eat it. It has no purpose because it doesn't exist in the dream of life. So the only way we can give some kind of semblance of life about A is to get you to believe it. Now, the way I explain it is it's like a hypnotist putting a watch in front of you, right? Or imagine the wipers in a car in the rain, right? And I say to you, I'm going to teach you A so you can comprehend A and the information of A, just like I've done with you by teaching you Alice in Wonderland by opening up the books with all the pictures and give it to you a day after day after day until you learn it. So I'm going to say, Stephen, A. I want you to repeat after me. A.
Okay.
A.
A.
Right. Now, I want you to repeat after me. B.
B.
Now, we're going to now form some words out of this ABC, and we're going to call it ABBA. And I'm going to give you some pictures to go with it.
And some noise too.
And some noise to go with it. And we're going to call it ABBA. No disrespect to the guys. They're great musos in the system. Awesome songwriters. World class. Great respect for them as musos. Songwriters. But I think the point I'm getting at is that you had to be put under a spell to know A. Because
to learn ABBA, you had to learn A and B, you know?
Exactly. So we had to be taught the spell to be put under their spell. Now, let's go back and a bit more here to something else, because we bring it back into present sense. We need to look at some of the history that relates now to why people suddenly, when they put on their costumes, and be changed. How does this happen? Well, this is it's all trauma-based, but we'll show it. We'll try and unravel it for you here in another way. We all of us are descendants of tribes of man all across Earth who were invaded and decimated by this agenda. You see, our ancestors were visited by missionaries, scientists, botanists, geologists, surveyors, etc. They came and went for up to 200 years across all of Earth, across all the tribes. Before the system even existed or they knew about it, they were visited by these brilliant storytellers. And after coming and going for up to 200 years of recording that his story, meaning they documented their customs, their tongues, the landscapes, the environments, etc. When they recorded everything about their way of life and the lands, They then sent their armies and navies in and whatever to decimate the tribes. Humiliation, ridicule, abuse, murder, genocide, etc. What remained after this horrific trauma? With mainly children. And from their ships, they brought the treasure chests onto the land, opened it up to bring out that version of his story that they had recorded about their ancestors. And they started to read and educate to them about that his story, which is no different. You're sitting on my lap. I'm reading you now the story of Alice in Wonderland, because that is his story.
Plus, if I can just say, rape would have been a huge part of that, because by the invaders raping the local women and impregnating them, they are very much changing the nature of who those people are and were. And that's a really sure way to muddy their recollection of who they are, because suddenly they've got this other thing coming in that's them as well. You see what I mean? So rape, that's probably why all soldiers rape on, when they're doing that.
The thing is that the original tribes of man in nature had direct experience with everything. That's all they knew, because there isn't anything else. It's just direct experience, and they don't need third-party representatives telling them anything. They didn't need education in that way. They saw by how their parents all around them lived, by observation. They saw how everyone did, and they saw. The thing is that his story that they were taught to read was through the generations, they gradually lost connection with the true tongue of their ancestors and all the true direct experience of everything that made the customs of those lives. Now, that's one factor we've all got to realize, because all of us are the result of this. Because you cannot be in the system without having that happen to us through the generations back where our ancestors were invaded by this agenda. Because there was no system. There were no kings and queens. They didn't have all that stuff. You've got to go right back before this madness started, because everyone recognized that all men were equal, that no man was master of another man. It was a law without even a law to be spoken. It was just in the consciousness of us. We knew that we sensed that. So you got that factor. Then you got the fact that from the storytelling, we get lost in the performance of the system, because it's the only way to keep the descendants of our ancestors enslaved. So they had to come up with covert means to keep us enslaved. So by getting us to perform in character under the name, now here for this land, or what we call Australia now, or the Commonwealth of Australia, which is a private corporation, which is superimposed, like if I say the daffodil is yellow, that hood of information, well, the corporation that is the Commonwealth of Australia and all the laws of all the system that's underneath it, right, is that storytelling that we have been taught through his story, her story. You see, I'm going to come back to this again, or we'll come back here, but there's another factor to this thing. And I mentioned this a lot in many of our things in some of our videos, but it needs to be spoken about. In their world, up to roughly 1780 AD, roughly, 99.99% of the total population of man, all our ancestors, going back through all recorded his story, had nothing to do with recording, because they couldn't do it. They couldn't read and write. They never did. Even up to 1930 AD, still more than 90% of the population of man all across Earth were illiterate to alphabet languages, because they're not natural. You had to be educated into them, right? Because it's not our true tongue. Now, the only ones who could record his story were the owners of the castles, the high priesthoods, the aristocrats, all the landlords, the land barons, all their scribes and lackeys, etc. And they represented roughly 20 per 1 million of the population of man. So it doesn't matter where you dive into his story, ancient or whatever, it was them. They're the only ones who could do it. No one else could do it. It was all our ancestors had their own song, their own tribal talk, their own village songs, and hand and facial body gestures. They didn't have alphabet languages, which is an abomination. All of them are an abomination, because they're not real. There's no life there. There's no sensory life form there. So you got that. Today's supposed 6.77 billion population of man, whatever it is, they're just telling us, we don't know, because no direct experience of what it really is. All their ancestors, going back for all recorded his story, had nothing to do with recording it, right? Because they couldn't do it. So all the brainwashing we've been given from the history books that came out of their treasure ships after the invasion and rape and pillage and plunder, right, was created by them. This is fact. So this is all we know. So if you can twist the truth, hide a lie in it. And the brilliance of this satanic world, this Freemasonic world, is that they give you sufficient truth to pull at your heartstring enough that you'll accept the lie as the truth because you haven't used your brain, your sense to rat out the lie, because the lie is buried in amongst the truth. Now, the truth will never do harm, but the lie will, and the lie will destroy everything. So if you had a mountain of truth, but one lie, if you do not rout that lie out, and you accept that lie as truth, the setting into motion of that lie as truth by you, by us, is what causes the destruction and the harm. That lie is trauma-based. Now, that lie is A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, compass and square, and all the constructs that forms the language of English and the meanings of language. Every letter of English, which was called the New World Language in their records of the 1200s, because back in the 1200s when they first started making English out of Hebrew, which was the original Egyptian alphabet language, and hieroglyphics being their commerce, their language of commerce, and the etymology and cryptography and all the other satanic Orwellian double speak, triple speak deceptions that they used, because they did everything through pictures. You see, what I'm trying to say is that when we were all taught A, B, C and put under the spell, they didn't teach us the meaning of A. They didn't teach us what the images of A represented, the pictography, the cryptography, the phonetics of that sound as we set it into motion. They didn't tell us any of that stuff. They just put A into a word and taught us the meaning of the word. This is like a witch in a big cauldron going, stirring this huge broth of letters and casting these spells to form these words. And each letter is an apparition, and each letter is a incantation. And we fall into the storytelling because we're educated, because we're taught A. Because see, A, all it can do is echo in your brain, because it's the only place it can be. You have to be taught to remember A.
Yeah, if we're not thinking about it and remembering it, it's nowhere. It's nothing.
It's nothing.
It needs our concentration and our focus to be anywhere. And that's what I was thinking earlier, actually, with the letters and stuff. The scary thing is that the real meanings of the letters and the words have an intention behind them. And every time we're using those letters and words, even if we're, not conscious of it, not meaning to, we're still setting that into motion if we're not careful, which is why we have to be so strong in our intention. And it's also why people have so many misunderstandings when they talk to each other. They just, and you can see it all the time on Facebook and other things. It's just the language is so twisted that we're actually finding it really hard to sense each other and what we really mean behind the gobbledygook that we have to use to communicate.
See, to bring all this back to this thing about why a man changes in a costume when you put we have to comprehend what's happened here. If we do not comprehend the methods used to bring this about, we'll be totally oblivious and continue to be manipulated. Because to be taught A is trauma. To represent A as a language is reacting to that trauma. It's all trauma-based. And the only way they can hold the trauma in your body is to get you to recall it over and over and over again. This is trauma to us. This is shocking. This is horrific what they've done to us. But we've done it to us because they gave us the temptation of A when we all sitting at school with the classroom with the teacher in front of A, yes, B, and it's brilliantly done.
Well, that's trauma as well, because if they don't do it, they get into trouble. So
exactly. Or they get ostracized and get by peer pressure, and and there's many psychological tactics used to do it. But all this time, the A is just an echo bouncing in your ears. That's all it is, and it doesn't exist. If we were to cut open the brain and go looking for it, you will never find it. The mind, M-I-N-D, I, does not exist. The mind is that. The ego is that. The subconscious is that. All one and the same. The person, the straw man, the agent in commerce, the Alice is that. That's what it is. It is trauma-based stored in the cells and tissues of your living body, and there it has to be held in some kind of suspended state. And if we get brought up thinking that this is who we are, because that the whole body of the information has been pounded to us from the moment of our creation. This is the sandpit I was talking about. Imagine there's a man who dreamt this sand, dreamt all the information of that sandpit, so that every grain of sand has a meaning, has a sound, has a purpose. And this man dreamt to kidnap man from the living nature and put the man into a sandpit, and to get that man to believe in the information of that sandpit, and to create their children out of that sandpit. And the children get brought up to create their children out of that sandpit. That's all they know. They don't know anything else. And because they're so lost in trauma, the ego of that fiction, because when you believe that you are Alice, that is your ego, because the ego does not exist. We can't have a direct experience of ego. We can't have a direct experience of your mind or your intellect or your person or your straw man or Alice or Supreme Court or 1, 2, or 3 or mathematics or geometry. You can't have a direct experience of any of these things because it's all make-believe. It doesn't exist. But all the time that we believe, and it's all that information is accumulating in our body, it's like a vortex forming this ego, forming the subconscious, forming this person. So when a man grows up who believes that that person wears a suit and that person, that ego, has a job, and they call him a lawyer or a barrister, or he works in graphic design, or is a songwriter or a producer, or works in whatever in the system, and he takes on and wears that uniform, all that trauma becomes him. And the whole storytelling that makes up his role in the system,
which includes his social life, his everything. You know how the same sort of workers tend to hang in the same sort of places, and the lawyers go to the ritzy bars, and it's more than just their job. It's their whole life becomes fashioned by this costume that they put on, who they socialize with, where they live, what they eat, what they drink, the cars they drive. So much of it comes back to, one, their education. The people who go to the snobby schools are the ones who become the lawyers. It's everything is so fashioned by just this costume that we put on, and we put it on because, again, our fear that if we don't, well, many of us without, on the bottom lines of the system, it's not much fun. So if you really want to have a bit of a comfortable life, you've got to don the costume, don the title, and live out of that, because if you don't, you're going to, have a hard time just eating and having a roof over your head and everything like that. So that whole fear is what keeps us getting up every day, putting on our costume and going out and performing.
Another thing I wanted to ask you guys about was, what your thoughts were on, obviously, people getting heavily into religion, which is sort of a big part of the system really now, and just wanted to see what you thought about it and why they give so much of their time and energy to it. And
listen, Stephen, apologies. I need to sort of complete what I just started before I went off, and Fee was carrying on.
No
I
worries.
need to, because we'll answer that. This will completely answer that question as well.
Okay.
Is that this storytelling that forms the ego, that forms the person, that forms the performance of that fiction, right, is a demon. It's an apparition. Now, when I was saying before that the daffodil is yellow, and you believe in that, it's like taking a potato sack and you put it over that life form to shroud it in darkness, because the whole time you are spinning in the storytelling that you're setting into motion that explains to you everything about what that life form is and what it does, da-da-da. But the whole time you're under my image power, because really you are just representing the storytelling that I told you about it, which means that I am now your God, I'm now your master, because you are under my image power. Now, when you are educated by these people and they invaded these lands and decimated our ancestors, and we've been brought up in the education system that brainwashed us all into this stuff, The body of all this storytelling that doesn't exist, it's all make-believe, is demonic because it hoods us in their darkness. It's all make-believe. There's no life there. Because if there was life there, it would be light and it would be real and we would have direct experience and no one needs to explain it to us. That's why I say you don't have to teach children about the tree. They only have to allow the tree to be in their experience by having it in their lives, and they can go and learn everything about it in their unique, original way. But when you start educating everyone about it, you disconnect them from it all. And if you do it in a brilliant way, you can create a story, a Wonderland fairy tale, and get you to performing in that story where the characters are kings and queens, are presidents and prime ministers, and that they're European Union and you know, and they're politicians, and that they're priests and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the ego is demonic possession. Now, in the real breaking down of the English codes, possession, possession, possession is the hood of the Judeo-Judaic world, because these people, these Freemasons, Satanists, Aryan bloodlines, these are the people. They're actually the ancient Greeks. They're not the Greeks. This man has Greek mother's side, Cypriot, dad's side, Evian, but we are not real Greeks. We're just the bastardized, raped, pillaged, and plundered version of what we now call a Greek. But the real Greeks are tall, white skin, brown, blue, not brown, but it can be brown eyes, blue, green eyes, blonde, brown hair, tall. These are Aryan bloodlines, and they go back to ancient Egypt, and they've kept those bloodlines intact. And these bloodlines are the master storytellers. They are the warlocks and witches of the Freemasonic satanic world of all this storytelling. And as Fee was mentioning earlier in the video, in this chat, that the lie keeps being adapted because as it wears thin and people see for what it is and the uprising is going to occur, they've got to keep coming up with another form of a prison to people to get locked in under their storytelling, which is what they're doing now with the barrage we're getting from all these people exposing the truth today about the methods used in the past that kept us as prisoners, which makes us fall for these storytellers because we haven't routed out the lies they're peddling. And it's the lies that will bring us into the New World Order and we'll become slaves to it because it's just a system again of another guise. The system was created to maintain power and control over all those that they captured. And they believe they are the chosen ones, right? So, you know, these people who think that they are the real power, they themselves all got it because they were babies too. They weren't given full disclosure what would become of their lives through the people around them that were already got it, who are the royal families and the high priestess and the aristocracy and the landlords and the land barons and all this stuff. This insanity started in Egypt and continues on now. And all that recorded history is all theirs. So you can't rely on any of it because it's been corrupted, because nobody was there to have a direct experience of what they told us. So when people start performing the Bible and they're telling us that Moses said this and this chapter and this chapter that, if you do not route the lie out and you accept that as the truth, you'll set that into motion. And it becomes you because you're now hooded by the body of the information that's now called the Bible.
You know, no baby thinks it's a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian. You know, because they have not yet been brainwashed into the story that is Judaism, Christianity, etc.
Race, culture, creed.
Yeah, a baby has no idea of that. It's only because they're under the image power of their parents and possibly their cultural circle around them that they learn that they are Jewish. They learn all the rules and regulations of being Jewish. And then that's how they take on that costume and title and identify themselves as being Jewish or Christian or Muslim or whatever. Really, they're just man. You know, when they're that little tiny baby, none of that even exists for them. They're just a baby, you know.
You see, all that is trauma. So when I came home and I tried to get in the front door and you won't let me in because you just moved everything to change the whole house into Wonderland, the whole time that you were doing that, you're disconnected from the real world around you of the living people. And that's no different to a man brainwashed into becoming Jew and Christian and Muslim and New Ager and atheist, etc., 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 etc. While we are lost in the storytelling and we are under the image power of that hood, that priesthood, that brotherhood, we're lost in the darkness of their making because they put the images into our head and we fell into those images by giving it power because we set them into motion. we can easily do harm to each other because we'll fight to protect the storytelling that makes us a Jew or a Christian. And that's the rules of the divide, or divide and rule, right? So they need to do that to break everyone down to individuals, to keep the chaos going so that they can then provide the order to that chaos. Because while everyone's lost in the storytelling, they can be easily manipulated and be got at and controlled. But when we remember who we really are, we no longer are influenced by this kind of image power. And we will refuse to harm another man because we see the lie of the storytelling. Because all Freemasons, all Satanists are masters of storytelling. And that's why we trying to point out, watch out for people like David Icke, Santo Bonacci. Watch out for these type of people. There's thousands and thousands of them, because all you're getting from them is storytelling. There's no remedy to help you remember who you really are. So they got to keep you trapped in the storytelling so that you keep reacting to that storytelling, because you have to react to remember. You got to keep, because when you're remembering and recalling, it's reaction to that trauma, which is stored in the cells of your body. It's the only place it can be. So we get lost into the formation of this ego. We get lost into the formation of this distortion we call emotion, ecclesiastical motion. Because when these people invaded the lands on this land we now call the Commonwealth of Australia, they divided up all the lands into parish lands. This is what you see in the land titles deeds in. And inside every parish land, they put a church. And inside every church, they put a priest to deal with the sinners. And the sinners are all hooded by their image power because they've all been educated. And so because the greatest lie of all is that some men are more equal than others, that some have more authority, more power than others, and they don't want the curse to come back upon them and their families and their children, they have to deflect it somehow. So the whole system of religion is designed to deflect the curse while keeping everyone as prisoners in the storytelling of the body of that information so that they can be ruled and that everything they do gives their life force energy for them. You see, so now we work for the system. And how it works is very clever. Very few of us, because most of us are truly good-hearted, very few of us want to become leaders and politicians and centers of power. We shy away from that. Most of us do not want to rape, pillage, and plunder the life force energies of another man, of their labor, for our own gain. We consciously don't like it. Most of us are discriminated against because most of us cannot grasp mathematics and commerce and compete in that system. And they know that, these people. That's why it doesn't matter what they throw into the fire of politics and whatever alternative representatives and whatever new ideas come along, because in the end, 99.99% of the total population do not want to take on leadership roles or roles where they can become highly successful in commerce, because they can't do it.
Because they have to get to that sort of level and be out there, you've got to be able to disregard your fellow man. You know, if you're the CEO of a corporation, you've got to be, and that's going to be successful, you've got to be able to say, okay, 400 jobs have to go, and have no conscience about the people whose families are now going to be affected because you've just got their main breadwinner is out of a job and may have difficulty getting another one. If you do not have that coldness and that lack of conscience, you will not be a successful CEO. And most people do have a conscience, you know, when it comes to trying not to hurt their fellow man. Exactly. So that's why very few people actually really want to become or are successful at being the CEOs of high corporations. They're the psychopaths because they have no feelings.
Exactly. And the Freemasonic satanic world, at the benevolent show pony levels of their hierarchies, Lions Club, Rotary Club, and Masonic lodges, and all the other charities and all the great feeling good things that go on, they have their own people in there to spot. They also have their own people inside the schools and education system, because they're always looking for the ones they can find that they can bring through and initiate them into the higher levels to become those psychopaths. So they've got that. Obviously, the first place they find them is amongst their own children, amongst their own kind. They're mankind. They're kind of man. That's what it is. It's their kind of man. It's not a man. It's not a man.
Kind of man.
It's a kind of man. That kind of man is a psychopath. And the only way to continue propelling the system into motion, to keep it going from one sunrise to the next sunrise to the next sunrise through the generations of sunrises and sunsets, they've got to come up with all kinds of storytelling. So they look for the right kind of men and women that they can use and drag them out and bring them into the initiated levels or the high levels where the greatest secrets are revealed to them, all the mysteries are revealed to them of these tactics. These people are then under an oath of death and destruction to their own kind, to their own people, and they're bound to it. So the whole thing is a rolling stone out of control, because at any time, anyone in that chaos can turn against any of them. So this is not as wonderful as everyone thinks it is. This chaos is insane. It is insane. But filtering it back down into everyday practical life, 99% of the population don't want to be part of that. That's why you have to be invited up. And information is provided on a need-to-know basis at each level of the hierarchy of the compartmentalizing of that structure, which David Icke shows as pyramid structures, or Russian dolls, Russian dolls within Russian dolls. The thing is this, in the end, it's a filtration to find the psychopaths who got the ability to control their conscience enough to be able to do harm by lying to others and blatantly do it and have a face that's like a wolf, but really it's a sheep, with a sheep front, with a sheep image,
you finish.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is that to continue the scam, to continue pulling this off, you need to have people in power who are psychopaths to continue misleading the innocent and pull them along into the system and keep them in the system so that their kind of man has the power and that they are the rulers. And all the civilizations ever created are theirs. All of them had the common denominator. What do you see? All of them had read and write alphabet languages. All of them had mathematics. All of them had geometry or sacred geometry. You'll see it. The Mayas, Aztecs, Incas, ancient China, ancient Persia, ancient Assyria, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Babylon, ancient Egypt, you name it. You'll see it. The Sanskrit civilization had it. All the civilizations we're uncovering, all the mysteries of all these things, they all had it. What's the other thing they all had? The common denominators here. They all had royal families divinely appointed by God, high priesthoods divinely appointed by God, and the rule of law of God. This God is their kind of man. That's their God. Because the man is the pharaoh acting as pharaoh. He's the man acting as pharaoh. It's that man acting as the prime minister or the president. He's the CEO. He's the David Icke. He's the whatever you want to call it. Because these are the psychopaths. Because they're blatantly lying to you and they know it. But they will not tell you the truth because they need to hook you. They got to give you the bait. They're the snake. They give you the apple. They got to get Eve to eat the apple because Eve is man. Adam is man. The snake is man. But the apple is the lie. And the snake, right, as I said, is man. They got to give you the lie to set that into motion so that you, as the fish, can take the hook and eat it and take the bait, right? And then as they are the fishermen, they're the kind of man, they're the chosen ones, they got you. And they can control you with their image power. And they can, while you are lost in the ocean of that intellectual property that makes up the Bible, because the Bible is the system. Peel back the everyday practical sense of the Bible. What do you see applied in everyday practical sense, as in a church and the priest? Peel it right back. The system. Peel back the synagogue. What do you find? The system. Peel back the Muslim faith. The system. Peel back the Buddhist. The system.
Which is what I was just thinking.
It's the system.
Exactly. Really, religion, like we look at religion almost as if it's kind of a separate thing because it has this whole mystical seriousness about it. But really, religion is just one of the means of keeping us distracted and keeping us divided. I mean, Arthur's mother is a very strict Greek Orthodox. And so she's always worrying because I'm not baptized, the children aren't baptized. And, she's a good woman. She genuinely worries and fears for us because she thinks we're going to hell. But I remember once I told her that I'd been to Jerusalem and she said, "Oh, what did you see?" And she said, "I bet you didn't see anything." And I knew what she's getting at. She's meaning I missed the whole, I didn't find the Greek Orthodox Church, basically, really. But And afterwards I thought, you know what I saw in Jerusalem? I saw the Jewish quarter. I saw the Arabic quarter. I saw the Armenian quarter. There's the Christian quarter. There's every kind of church just about you can want there. The Copts, the whoever else, they're all there. And yet none of them talk to each other. None of them get on with each other. And they're all fighting for their own little bit of Jerusalem because they all think it's the holy place. And that shows you right there and then what religion does to us. It's just another means of keeping us divided and apart. And no, it's got to be my way. Because not all of those religions teach our religion's the right one. No one else's is the right one. Everyone else is wrong. If you want to be saved,
well,
you've
there
got
will
to
be something wrong in a little bit. There might be
exactly.
close. There's something just not right, and so hence we get another breakaway.
Yeah.
You know, look at Christianity. How many breakaways do we have? You know, it's just.
But the point is, religion's just another distraction and another way of dividing us and keeping us apart. It's really no different to someone who's, footy's their religion, and they live for their rugby union, you'll call it, rugby league, and they live for their rugby league, and that's their life. And my team won, and my team lost, and they're a bunch of losers, and
they're entertained.
And that's what keeps them distracted. There's no different from going to church and good, I've prayed to Jesus today, and He's going to save us, and it's no different. There's nothing unique. It's just, you see, what the other biggest thing that especially in countries like England, America, Australia, we grow up going, we're so lucky, we're free. Basically what's happened, we've been taught to mistake choice for freedom. So what we have is lots and lots of choices, more choices. Like for me as a woman in Australia, or I grew up in England, I had a lot more choices than a woman in Saudi Arabia, for example, who has to wear her burqa and all those sort of things. Now, really, I'm no more free than the woman in Saudi Arabia. It's just I have a lot more choices of what I can do with my life, and I have a lot more, I can go where I want. I don't have to ask my husband's written permission to go somewhere, etc., etc. But I'm still not free. All right, I do. I do, but we'll pretend that I don't. So basically, it's just choices. Religion is just a choice of lifestyle in the system. That's all it is. Just the same way as being a fashionista is a choice, or being a lawyer is a choice. That's all it is.
See, the thing is the system, going back for all the civilizations that ever was made believe, had some method of a body of information that had to be educated at least to that kind of man, that they are the chosen ones, right? Because they're the appointed ones, right? Today we have that kind of man who are now behind the United Nations and the NATO, the European Union, and behind the Commonwealth of Australia, and behind the British Westminster system. You have that kind of man, right? And these are psychopaths, and a blatant psychopath, because they're prepared to make decisions that harm others and harm nature. Everything that matters to us has to be compromised, because it's the only way they're going to maintain power control over that, all over the human. The human is not a man. We're not a human. Hue is a shade or type or color of a man. It's a type of man, right? We're not a human. We're man. We're man. Capital M, capital A, capital N. We're man.
Or we should be.
We're androgynous, actually, because all of nature is androgynous, and all of man is androgynous. We've got breasts. I've got breasts. We're all androgynous. But the point is that we've been so brainwashed into what is left and right, what is male and female, what is good and bad. And this is the thing about commerce, mathematics. 1, 2, and 3. What are they? They are the mechanics of commerce that brings into the haves and the have-nots, what is weak and what is strong, who gets the benefit, who doesn't get the benefit. And there's so much exclusivity and privilege that comes out of all of this, which benefits that kind of man.
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is that when you get inside the system and see for what it is, what you see, what we sense, is just a body of information that gets everyone to fall into the storytelling of those myths of that time, of that civilization that we now call ancient. But the methods used are no different to the methods used today, or the same methods are going to be used again to con everyone to the next version of the system, which is the New World Order, right? Which is going to be brought in by all the good guys, because the Freemasonic world, that kind of man works as bad guys and good guys. Order out of chaos. So and the bad guys are creating all the chaos, and out of the same fraternities, lodges, cults, sects, societies, brotherhoods, sisterhoods, etc., come the good guys. And they come to provide the remedy to the bad guys. But the whole time, everyone is so entertained and so distracted, reacting to trauma, chronically reacting to trauma, that the reacting to trauma is what creates the New World Order, right? And this is going to answer the question about religion and going back to the man in the costume, because we take on this artificial demonic possession, this hood, and that's why we change, because there's no life there. And we've been trained to disconnect from having direct experience as the living man, with everything being equal and they're caring for everything, because we are the custodians and caretakers of the dream of life. The fact is, we are the creators of the dream of life, because we're the only one present with the presence of life as a first. No one can bring forward, everyone claims that there's something else out there, but they can't bring it forward as a first party. When you challenge them and ask to bring forward Jesus or God or the Galactic Federation, or bring forward whatever they claim to be true, they can't. All they can bring forward is a third party representing a representative to perform and act the storytelling that makes up the Galactic Federation.
Oh, Jesus.
Exactly. So the thing you got to remember here too is that also, and this is in some of our videos, when you go into the YouTube channel, the Arthur Love for Life YouTube channel, FOR, not number 4, Arthur Love for Life, you'll find videos there, one called Water is the Life of Man's Consciousness, or Man's Breath, whatever it is. We explain in there that every time we breathe out, we're creating water. And encoded, embedded in each breath is every thought, feeling, intention as we breathe out. And there it remains in present sense eternally. Now, it's so easy to create apparitions and make believe kind of things like demonic things that come out of pentagrams, or a concrete statue of the Virgin Mary crying, or an image of Jesus Christ with the crowns tortured and bleeding with real blood, because we actually create that, because we're the one present to setting it into motion. You see, the thing about all this stuff that makes us so trapped in the trauma is because the common denominator is us to the story. We're the only one present with the presence of life, giving our power to the story, which empowers the story, and the story bounces back with the energy of that image that we're projecting. So if you get enough people believing that that Jesus, the image of Jesus, has power and can heal, we can heal. And the people who have surrendered to that image power will experience the healing and the power of the collective consciousness of all of man, breathing out that intention, giving it power. And that kind of man, the priests behind who know this, use it to manipulate everyone, because everyone thinks it is Jesus and God and something else behind the veils doing it. And all the time, the common denominator is us. Now, this goes back to what we were saying earlier about every lie needs a time code. You cannot pull off a lie without a time code. So if you imagine you're sitting on my lap and I'm opening up the Bible, that body of satanic information that contains truths in it as well, and I tell you you're in 33 BC now, and you believe me, and I show you a calendar and say, look, this is 33 BC, and today's Monday, and we're in February the 6th, 33 BC. Not saying that that's how it is, but just yeah, or whatever. And you believe that. And tomorrow, the date's changed to the next day. But I keep reading to you the prophecies that are in the Bible. And you are the only one present with the presence of life, in present sense, breathing out these images, giving power to these images, because you're believing it. We'll explain what belief means here in a minute, because this all connects back to religion and the man with the costume and all this stuff is wearing a suit. And what happens to us is that 33 BC becomes 32 BC, becomes 31 BC. And as we go through the process of believing in this day after day after day after day in the storytelling, and we then create our children from that, and now our children in 72 AD, 73 AD, 74 AD, and they're also thinking, feeling the image power of the same storytelling with all the prophecies set to the time code of that calendar. Eventually, we're going to produce a generation down the line of that time code which is now the time code of 2013, 2014, 2015 AD, you'll produce the outcome of a generation to create it, because the whole common denominator was man to the story. Acting, no difference to us going from chapter 1, act 1 of Alice in Wonderland to act 2, chapter 2, and all the journey of Alice going through the story of that journey of Alice through Wonderland when you read the whole book. You see, we are the only one present with the presence of life. So we are at the effect of each other's intention and what images we set into motion. And because you have these harvesters, these grim reapers, who take our life force energy and manipulate us, because behind the Bible is this Freemasonic satanic priesthood, collecting all your life force energy. Remember, nearly everyone's a good-hearted man and woman. They're all good people. They just haven't used their brain to scrutinize this to the greatest degree here and route it out. And remembering that the only way you route it out is when you cannot have a direct experience, first party, with everything that people claim to be true that is in the Bible or any other story that's given to us today. When you start seeing third-party representatives coming forward, there's just another man, you know straight away this is fraud. Someone's committing a lie here. So you peel it all back. What you see is that we are all at the effect of each other's intention being set into motion. So it's easy to create the cross of a man as Jesus and make that man bleed. We have the power to do that. We have the power to deceive each other by the collective consciousness of many of us thinking those images and giving those images power. And they can use that image to give the apparition a make-believe presence temporarily. It's always temporarily. Right? As Satan coming out of a pentagram, or as a God coming forward as a dream, or as the Virgin Mary coming forward to 3 children back in 1913, whatever it was, in Portugal. This is all satanic manipulation through the water of our breath, because the water of our breath is our true consciousness. There's no beginning to water. There's no end to water. There's no outside to water. There's no inside water. Everything is water. When they taught us system science and they say it's space out there and dust, they've lied. It's all water. Well, what remained of water, because all that was burst and all the water came down, which filled up all the lowlands. It's another story. It gets into another subject here.
Which is why, when we were talking about earlier about, what we have to do to get out of the system, it's like why we have to change how we're thinking and how we're feeling, because what we've created, what's around us, by our thoughts and our feelings and our actions and our projection of that.
We are the effect.
Yeah, that is what we're experiencing. What we're experiencing is what we've all created. If we want to create something different, we have to change the way we think and feel and behave.
And set that into motion.
And which is obviously the hardest thing for most people.
And that's why the body of the information is the Bible, is the system which gets people to believe that they're going to go to hell unless they are saved. So it's easy for them to fall into the storytelling against the background of all that represents hell that is in the Bible, to trap a man who now thinks that that man is saved and is a newborn Christian. This is reaction to trauma, right? That's no different to a man who has to wake up to go to work to get the money, to keep the roof over their head and have the food on the table. That is reaction to trauma. There's no different to a man who has to go to war to fight the Jew, or the Jew to fight the Christian, or fight the terrorists, or any other make-believe thing that we come up with.
And it's also the same as all those distractions like sport, fashion, whatever. They are reactions to trauma, because they're moments that we can get away and push all that, forget about the job, forget about the mortgage, forget about this for a little bit. Because it's like that release of pressure, the constant pressure of just trying to keep things together under the system. It's our reaction to trauma. We want an escape, to get away, to watch the movies, get out of our life and look at something else.
You see, the New World Order, that's just a system under another feel-good God, all one is consciousness guise, because oneness is the system glue. That's all it is. Oneness is just a system glue that binds everyone to the new system. If you look at carefully at the Bible and you look at the New World Order, what do you see? The characters and props. You see quantum physics. You see Earth as a planet turning, going around the sun. You see that Mars is a planet. We're part of a solar system. You see that we're all tiny aspects of this universe, I-T-Y. We can explain this later or another time.
Sure.
The point is here that it requires many props to make up the stage, to introduce the performer, the representative, who acts in the story of that on stage. Because the New World Order is the stage with its props. And the men and women who are acting in costume and title of the Oneness Consciousness and the Galactic Federation and the APPT and etc. and on it goes. Because without all of it, they can't construct it to deceive you into falling into it. That's no different to the old days of the myths with the Odin and Zeus and all the gods. They made up the Greek civilization or the Nordic civilizations, or the gods that made up the Hindu civilization or the Sanskrit civilizations, or the gods that made up the Egyptian civilization or the Mayas, Aztecs, and Incas. It required storytelling to get men and women to become the pharaoh, to become the emperor, to become the actor, to become the slave. You see, there are no winners.
Now it takes 20 years of education for someone to become the lawyer,
Yeah.
the doctor, the dentist. You know, that's how hard they have to hit us over the head. It takes them 20 years to get us, you know.
Well, you got to go back because those who initiated into the read and write alphabet language of those secrets prior 1780 AD, it took 20 years minimum to master the craft and practice of Satanism. Because that's what it is. It's black magic set into motion as a make-believe world. When you had to learn a read and write alphabet language, you also had to learn mathematics and geometry because the system of that time was commerce too. So you could not become a lawyer or a draftsman of law to form a language because English was constructed out of draftsmen of law, which are called today barristers, architects of law. It was all constructed by Judeo-Judaic legals. Right, the letter J, I must point out, it didn't even exist until 1520, 1530, when Francis Bacon, alias William Shakespeare, invented the word Jew and used the word Jew. Up until that point, that letter J never even existed. Yet today everyone thinks all the constructs of that letter J that forms the word Jew and Jesus is real. And the deception of this is phenomenal, but this is all cryptography, phonetics, etymology, Orwellian doublespeak, triplespeak, forms of communication and language going on which goes over the heads of nearly everybody, bar those who are initiated into the symbolisms and the cryptography and the images used that forms ABC 1, 2, 3 compass square. When you walk around the city of Sydney or the city of London, you look at the architecture, you see Egypt, the civilization. Egypt means the system. Egypt is the system. And the Western world is the system because the Western world is ancient Greece, which is ancient Egypt. It is all that same 6 common denominators I was pointing out to you before. Read and write alphabet languages, mathematics, geometry, divinely appointed high priesthoods, royal families, and the rule of law. You can change all the names into prime ministers and president, European Union, and etc. It's all the same nonsense. This is the point. This is the 2 realities we've got to work out here. Alice is nonsense. The Bible is nonsense. The thought of God is nonsense. The thought of Jesus is nonsense. That is black magic. That's where they trapped you in the shadow. The real one is sensory, is sense, because you have direct experience. Nature does not lie to us because there is no third-party representative coming forward to represent the horse or the tree or the caterpillar or the soil or whatever, right? So only through man, getting at man, can we be conned to fall into storytelling on stage of that time, of that his story, her story, to be lost as the characters. And while we are lost in character, we are under trauma because we are traumatized and we are reacting to trauma. So when you get a living man brainwashed through all the years of their parents, because they were brainwashed, who go to preschool, kindergarten, first class, second class, third class, up into high school and all the grades of high school. And they continue believing in all the storytelling of the system roles. They can easily go to Universe ITY, university, universe, one story, one act, to be brainwashed to become an engineer and all the storytelling of the engineer. So when they come out with all their titles and certificates to verify that they're totally brainwashed psychopaths, because that's what it is, bless their hearts, because they're good people, we're all good people, but they can't see the purpose of every life form of the forest anymore. They can easily look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees and see that 2 trees not important anymore and 4 trees not important and take them out. They can easily see, oh, God, that mountain over there is going to give me the concrete that I need to build my next city. I can easily put my highway through that city, through that forest. They can't sense the purpose of everything because they're lost in nonsense. They can't sense anymore. And so when you're producing a production line in Factory Planet Earth of men, women, and children who go through Universe ITY, you're producing a series of robots and drones that continue on the agenda of destroying each other and harming each other.
Well, this is the thing I was thinking before as well. The 1, 2, 3, when we learn the numbers, it stops us seeing things as a whole. So when you go to the forest and you say, oh, I'll just take one tree, you've made that tree separate and apart from the rest of the forest. Whereas if you go and you look at the forest as a whole, you'll see the vital role that one tree has as part of the ecosystem that is the forest. Now, if you can sense that and you're aware of that, you're not going to take that tree down. But if you're just seeing it as one tree of 100 trees, it feels like, oh, it's only one tree, it's not going to matter. You're not realizing that tree is unique, it's original, it's got its own purpose, it's its own home for whatever creatures are living on it, and it's not any of the other trees. It's not the same as any of the other trees. Then you see that. You can't take that tree down because you realize its purpose in the dream that is the forest.
Yeah, so this leads us back to one other thing here to try and give some kind of conclusion to this image power, is that you cannot create a drone, you can't create a robot, you can't create a kind of man or a human, which is all about desensitizing us from direct experience, direct connection, everything. You see, in the real world, harm to you is harm to me. Harm to the tree is harm to me. Harm to a living creature is harm to this man, because I am all these things. I'm the only one present everything, and I'm responsible. So we don't want to set harm or lies into motion, because we really should be having community immunity. Because if we really woke up, and this goes back to the beginning of the video here, where we asked us the question about our background, what shocked us the most is that there was no community immunity. Everyone kept telling us, she'd be right, mate, no worries, mate. While everything that we had, that we worked for in the system, was being stolen from us. So we realized something was terribly wrong and that we were the problem. We realized we were the problem. Then we realized everyone else around us was the problem too, because we were so lost in storytelling. And we're so lost in passing the buck, passing the responsibility to others that they are going to fix. That's why you go to elections. You fix it. This is why everyone waits for Jesus to fix it. They need the magic wand to come down with the fairy godmother to fix it, because they won't take responsibility, right? So when you look at the whole body of information of storytelling, it's all about giving up full responsibility for the man we are, because we fell into the storytelling of the fiction of that man that we are, that is the name of the mark of the beast. There's your straw man, your certificate, your birth certificate, because we're now in the shadows of that brotherhood, sisterhood that conned us into their storytelling, destroyed us by giving us a lie, giving us the illusion, the matrix, the real world was a shadow. So while we're lost in that, we give up responsibility, because in the story, the supermarket provides us with the food. The transport provides us with the food delivery. The petrol provides us with all the stuff. What's behind all of this? Slaves. Men, women, and children who are slaves to work in Woolworths and Coles, who work in the government, who work on the roads. Men, women, and children have to be brainwashed to become the cogs in the wheels of that system progress. They become the blue collars and the white collars because they have to be educated to become that kind of man that is a human. It's not real. We're so disconnected. We've lost direct experience, direct connection to everything here. So if you look at it from that perspective, we have to break it. We've got to break the spell so we stop harming each other, which means we come forward to provide community immunity. Because I don't want to see harm now done to anyone around us, because I don't want it to come to my children, because it spreads. If you allow a bit of cancer into your body or some lethal sickness, and you say, yeah, you can, and it says to you, listen, do you mind if you share your body with me? And you say, yeah, sure, no worries. You can have my leg. And it needs to live, survive. So he has to take your second leg and take your groin until it comes up into your chest. It takes your heart, right? So if you have a healthy immune system and it comes knocking on your door, your immune system is like a little elephant gun. It's going to go and dissolve it. It won't let it in. That's what a lie does to us. It harms us. We have to rout out all lies. We have to rout out all methods of lying and all methods of psychological deception that makes us fall. This is not about becoming space cadets and running away from being responsible. This is about taking full responsibility for everything, taking matters into our own hands to care for the land, to care for the water, to care for, and not passing it off into a system of slaves who don't have you in their dream. They don't think about the outcomes of what those effects will be on you and your children. It allows them to poison and pollute and manipulate and have advertising companies lie, so you keep buying their products, which underneath it has the aspartame and the MSG and the chlorine in the water, and you keep allowing the lie into your life to spread because there's no consistence. It's lies. So the reality is we've got to say no to all forms of lies and stop it. And at the heart of all of this thing, Stephen, is belief. And this is to conclude it, mate. This
Sure.
part.
Yeah.
In the middle of the word belief is the word lie. And in the middle of the word lie is I. And I is the greatest lie and liar of all. Because that I is all seeing. Right? You, in the story of Alice in Wonderland, all see the story. You're in the sea of that story. You see it to perform it. If you didn't see it, it would go right over your head as gobbledygook Martian talk, and it would make no sense to you. You couldn't comprehend it, understand it. So you have to be educated so you can all see it. So the Freemasonic world, when they use the obelisk and they use the pyramid with the all-seeing eye, right? The ego, the name on your birth certificate, the mind, the intellect that forms these, that we are formed out of this apparition of trauma, representation of trauma, is the all-seeing eye. Because unless we all see the act of the engineer, we can't perform it. If we don't all see the story of the Christian, we can't perform the story of Christian in the story of the acts of the Bible. We can't perform to the time codes to create the outcomes of the self-fulfilling prophecies of that story, because it is self-fulfilling. The all-seeing eye is the name that I'm saying, is the ego, is your subconscious, is your mind, is your intellect. Because the satanic world worships the intellect, because it is a world of life. It is a world of images without life in it. It's got no life there. It's make-believe life. And we have to stop this. So we have to stop creating the all-seeing eye and performing for it, because that is that hood that shrouds us in darkness of education, as someone else explained to us about something. Now, it's so easy in the all-seeing eye where you believe. They say to us, Earth is a planet, and it's turning and going around the sun, which is going around a galaxy of many galaxies, and everything is turning in a universe of many universes. Universe, one story. It's all storytelling here. There's no direct experience. No one's seen the solar system. No one's experienced Mars or Venus. People say, but it's up there. Yeah, but the storytelling has not come from that life form. It's come from another man who told you. and you superimpose all that over that, when you realize how deep this programming goes, it's so easy to give up responsibility of who we are here and now. Because now in the storytelling of astronomy, astrology, numerology, gods, myths, higher powers, alien beings, galactic federation, etc., channeled life forms coming from somewhere else. When you get so lost in the spinning spiral vortex of the storytelling, you can easily believe that you are on a journey heading from somewhere to somewhere else, and that you are a tiny aspect of this universe at the effects of all these stories, as in you're at the effect of astrology because you're a Libran and it's sitting in the 6th house right now, and you will let that affect you because you believe in it. You gave it power, and you let the vampires behind who suck all that energy to use it against you, to make you be at the effect of that trauma. You see, so when you believe that you are saved as a Christian, it's easy to give up responsibility for your life here and now because you already gave it to God and Jesus, which makes you so easy to be manipulated and controlled by the very same people who lied to you. Because you gave up responsibility here and now. And we say to Christians who say, but God does exist. And I say, do you think that this God who created your heaven on earth, this paradise, because this God created in God's image, because they believe that, created this perfection and gave you this earth, and you've gone and destroyed and racked and ruined and took no responsibility for any of it during the whole life you lived as a Christian because you're a consumer of destruction, he's going to let you back into his heaven because you won't take responsibility, and he's going to just let you do all that? And you're not taking any responsibility and you're just going to pass the buck? This is the insanity, the absurdity of this thing. The point we're getting at is that the deception comes through belief, faith, and associated opinion with intellectual property. That is the storytelling that makes up the system with its props and characters that con us into falling into it, to perform it. Right? Now, religion is that. The man in costume who changes from being the man and changes is that. Because it's all demonic possession. It's demonology. It is black magic. This is sorcery of the worst kind. It's evil. It's anti-life. Because that's what Christ means. Christ is life. It's anti-Christ. It's life. Anti-life. We are anti-life. We're the ones causing it. There's no one else to blame. So we've got to take responsibility to withdraw from setting harm into motion, to stop doing it. And we are all deeply compromised waking up. So we can't sit there and panic and freak out and think, oh, we can't do it. We're going to have to use our wits and get smart and do gradual but fast steps out of this mess. And that's why we wrote the Steps of Kingdom back in 2006, 2007. We'll put the link up for that as well. Because we created this thing called the Mudroom. This is just one. We're not saying it's the only way, but at least it shows a way out of this mess to recreate the tribes that we all came from. Because see, the remedy that's going to fix all these problems can only be found before our ancestors were trapped in the storytelling. We've got to go back before the invasion, before the education started, to find the remedy. Because all the time we've been lost in the his story, her story, we will never find the remedy because it doesn't exist. It was never put there. Because if it did, the his story wouldn't even exist. We would have destroyed it or obliterated it all. There would be no kind of man. There would be no one living a lie anymore. So they had to keep it all secret. They had to give it the facade that everything was good to appeal everyone's good heart, because everyone is a good man or woman. So they pull you. The David Ikes pull you with the truth they give you to pull the goodness. Because in pulling you, you are reacting to the trauma, because in the background, this is what we explain in the APPT videos, the 3 videos we put up. You imagine the children of Cambodia at the time of Pol Pot, after the decimation of the Pol Pot regime. All the villagers, all their families had their heads chopped off, or they were impaled up on posts. And so all the children, and whatever remained in those villages, adults, to go to the water wells, to get their water, to go and get their food, they had to walk down the paths where all the heads impaled, where all their bodies are put up to remind them of their powerlessness and the ruthlessness of those in power, so that they feel powerless and hopeless. That's no different today with 9/11, chemtrails, fracking, and every other cause they're hitting you with, because all the time you're being pulled. It's just one head beheaded up there's 9/11. As you walk past another one up there, the poor child, that's the destruction of the ocean. The next one over there is the harms of radiation and microwaves and MSG and aspartame. The horror of the whole thing. But all the time, you're passing the buck to someone else to fix it. So you have to have rallies and protests. You got to go and have Occupy. But that's not going to fix it. Why? Because the whole time you're still giving your energy to the system. You're trapped in the trauma of the system, which is exactly what they want you to do. The only way to stop it is to withdraw from all of it. Stop reacting. Stop feeding it. And that's when we really fix it, Stephen. We have to withdraw in a mass exodus from the system. We practice how to do that. We learn to live without it. And that's in one fatal blow, we fix all the problems. Because no longer do we have a kind of man, a psychopath in control anymore. Because we no longer give them status and power.
But we have to be prepared to work really hard. And this is another way they've really got us. They have taught us to be lazy, especially more and more the younger generations coming through. It's all just iPods and skateboarding and amusements, and that's what they've been taught to seek and look for. Look for relaxation. Oh, anything for that break. You know, you work hard, but then you've got to have your release and your holiday, and that's what we've been taught to do. But we've got to realise we've got ourselves in a very big hole here. We can get out, there is no question, but we're going to have to be prepared to put the work in. Really put the work in. If we want to create food forests, we've got, because at one time food forests were all around us. All we had to do to find sustenance was walk out and pluck whatever we needed to eat from the plants around us. But now we've ruined the soil, we've ruined the air, we've ruined the water. When for us to create food forests, we now have to put in a lot of effort and repair the soil and try and get the cleanest water we can and all those sort of things. So it's not something that's easy,
it's hard work.
And that is the other thing. You've got to, most people fall apart at this point. They really want to do something, but when they realise the amount of work it's going to take to actually do that, and physical hard labour, when they realise that, it's kind of very fast, I don't know, I don't think I can cope with that at the moment.
You see, the thing is, we've seen this in the 9 years of doing this Love for Life work and going where the truth takes us, because that's what we do. We argue, debate, we scrutinise, we do all kinds of things to try to find where is the truth and what's the remedy and how do we get into this mess and how do we get out of this mess. People who watch this video, if you realise what we're saying to be true, there's no point spending the next 2, 3, 4 years learning more about it. Mm-hmm. It's a waste of time, because the dead world will not give you any life. All it can do is tell you what has happened in the dead world and how we got into it. If you realise what we're saying here to be true and you want to take responsibility, you must now unite with your brothers and sisters and start caring for each other as a team effort, because freedom is now going to be a team effort. Truth is a team effort. The system is a team effort. You see, the whole system is made up of slaves to provide you with the food for the supermarkets. It provides you with the labourers that maintain the roads, the representatives that come forward behind the Supreme Court and the High Court and the governments and the politics. The whole thing is slavery. We're all representatives of storytelling. That's a slave. We're renters of that intellectual property, right? So if we want to break the spell, if we want to no longer be under the spell of the storytelling, we must take responsibility, take the power into our own hands, stop giving it away. So now we've got to get into our local communities or move to those communities where we meet brothers and sisters who want to work together to recreate the food forest, recreate the clean water, recreate a way of life where everything is provided to everybody and everybody is a winner.
And where we start to minimise the harm. At the moment, everything we do every day, we're causing harm. And it's hard just to stop everything at one point. But if we can start trying to minimise, just gently wean off things that we actually don't need to be doing that are causing harm. We're gradually taking those steps to a do no harm way of life. And also that I've noticed something that with this globalization of life now, and that everyone's watching on their TVs what's happening in Rwanda or Serbia or India or somewhere, and we get all concerned about that. We forget to think local and see what's happening around us, because there's no point in us being all concerned about the orphans of Serbia when in our backyard we're causing harm and destruction daily. We've really got to get down to where we are now
and fix it there,
and fix it where we're
spread it out.
Yeah, because we're responsible for the harm that's happening all around us every day. We've got to get, like, ideally, get going with your neighbours too. Who wants to grow? Okay, maybe you can sort out someone's garden's great for fruit trees. Everyone gets fruit trees going there. And other people are growing more veggies. Other people, so everyone's, can
building
start
hothouses,
intermingling and.
But the thing is that the more pure and sincere our intention is, we actually change the weather. We change everything, because we are at the effect of all the weather is created by us. They are just our thoughts, feelings, our negative, destructive emotions bouncing back in the image of our projection. Through our ancestors and through this generation that we are, and we continue it, the generations that come will even suffer more by the lie that we are setting into motion. Through all the distortion of our breathing as we breathe these lies into motion that impacts everything. Well, we've had people come and stay with us. We've got Hannah, who's been now with us for 2.5 years almost. We've had Mark, who came and stayed here and left only recently for 4 months. What we discovered with many people come and stay with us, the reality of the trauma and how powerful. If you have had a lifetime of taking heroin and you're a heroin addict and you need morphine and you need that fix, you can't survive without it. It is horrible to go cold turkey, but you're going to have to if you really want to break it and have the support of others around you to help you through it. When people come and stay with us, the horror of their addiction to the system, because it's all trauma, they bring the trauma with them, as we have done, and still are, because we're still healing the trauma in our body of all that spell that's in us, all that make-believe world that's in our cells and tissues, and that's cooked food, and all the distortion of nature that we've done to become this dead fiction in the dead world. The horror of this. See, the thing is that because everyone's so used to being spoon-fed by a slave system, it's easy to wake up, I'll go for a surf. I'll go and watch a movie. It's easy. I'm going to go and do something for me now.
Or I've worked for a couple of hours, so now I need to go and sit on the computer for 5.
The whole time, it's the system that allows that to happen. They rely on slaves, as we all do, brainwashed slaves, to provide all the services and benefits of the system for us to do that, right? When you face the trauma, you have to let go of all the trauma to wake up to become the man that is a life, that is a gift of life, because now we live for everyone else around us. Because in the system, it's about what I want. It's me, I, mine, my surfing, my mountain climbing, my hiking, mine this, at the cost of not getting rid of the system that keeps everyone a slave, so that when we come back from the ocean, when we come back from nature, we have the system of slaves still there that spoon feeds us because we're going to go to the shop to get our latest fruit and veggies.
You can stop off at a cafe and have a breakfast on the way back.
Yeah, a cafe latte, all that brainwash up. You see, the thing is that when we get to the core of this is hard work now, because what we realize, we have to now pay the price as a consequence for all the years that we've been asleep, supporting this problem, doing destruction in the local areas where we've been living, because we are the consumers of that reality of nature all around, which is very little around, because now we've got suburbia and concrete cities and dead world things everywhere, and the living forests and nature in its original form have been altered severely and destroyed. We've got to fix all this. So we're now going to have to put the work in, put the hard effort in to fix it. Day after day after day after day, to pay the price to fix the mess. And if we don't, the consequences are massive, because the result of continuing down this road is the complete annihilation of everyone and everything that's lost in it, because that's the only thing that can come. The dead world can only give you back the dead.
And in the same way, if we want to clean up our bodies and clean up our brains, we've got to put the effort in. You've got to stop putting the rubbish in and even if you live in a little flat somewhere, you can still grow fresh sprouts, and if you've got a little balcony, you can still get some fresh greens and things going that will actually nurture your body and take care of your body.
Exactly, because
but you've got to put the work in. It's not going to happen. I want it to
in the system. It's my money, my assets, my equity, my land holdings, mine. You can't bring paradise or create paradise out of that, because everybody who wants to go to paradise, because that's what everyone wants to have freedom, truth, peace, joy, abundance, do no harm, no loss of uniqueness, originality, no slaves and rulers. For everyone, everything. Everybody wants this. This is the criteria, except the psychopaths who won't admit it, right? Because they lose all their power when people no longer want the system, because they're taking matters into their own hands again. You've got to give all that up, because if you still want to claim that you own something, my land, you need a system to protect that claim from others stealing it from you. And then you need a force to withstand the attack of that potential theft. But when you come from your consciousness, when you come from the true heart of love, of all the virtues of love in motion, where life is a gift, we already got it all anyway. And when people are conscious, they do not want to have you be enslaved. They don't want you to be under their shadow, or you don't have the freedom to dream peacefully. They know that you need to have a piece of land to take care of and be responsible for, because that's where your freedom is. And that's where you have your dreaming. And then you can come to the tribe and the community with their dream and share that with everyone. It's the fear of loss that has you want the system, that has you fight to claim that you own. That's no different to the Christian who believes he has to be saved and has to keep going to church every week and practice all the rituals of his Savior because he's saved. No difference.
No one's going to give us freedom. We have to create the freedom in our lives.
By how we live.
And how we think.
Set it in motion.
We do that.
Right? And that's at the heart of everything here. So we could go on and on about image power, but you can read the articles in the loveforlife.com.au website. There's a lot of things there to look at. But unless you can come to terms with image power and realize it for what it is and see the trauma for what it is, and if you're not prepared to take the responsibility to stop it, there's no way out of this mess. We will self-destruct. We will kill each other.
It's all or nothing, really and truly.
Yeah.
It is nothing. So at some point, when we get the community going, we have to disconnect the internet. We've got to disconnect electricity. We've got to disconnect gas. We don't need alternative energy. All these windmills they're talking about, it destroys millions of birds. It causes
like 18 million a year killed by windmills.
To create solar panels, you have to destroy Earth to have it.
And I think I read something that the wind turbines, where they're making them in China, they're suffering massive radiation because something to do with the process of how they make them. They've got millions of Chinese dying of radiation problems because their job is to make these wind turbines for us.
Because it's not a natural process. Mm-hmm. You see, we all think we need all these things, but this is greed and selfishness and laziness and boredom.
And sickness. A big part of the reason people go, I've got to have my remote control garage door, is because actually they're not fit enough or healthy enough to get out of the car and open the door. If they were fit and healthy, it wouldn't bother them to leap out the car and open the door because the body's working. And the same thing with, your armchair that's kind of lies you back and this, that, and the other, so you don't feel the aches and pains in the body. Your remote control, or you've got to have the elevators and the escalators because you're too unfit and unhealthy to walk up the stairs.
And you need other storytellers telling you how to think and feel about everything, because you can't use your own brain. You need to have others program you. You see, we're so used to being a drone that we need to be fed the programs all the time, and they know, and that's how they'll lead you into the new world order.
And health is a huge one. It's like you talk about the self-fulfilling prophecies. You go to the doctor and he tells you that you've got diabetes, and diabetes is incurable, and that's it. That's your life sentence. Then, hey, presto, and you believe the doctor because the doctor has been presented to you as a figure of authority who knows more about your body than you do, and you believe that, then, hey, presto, that's what you got. You've got a life sentence on your body and you've got an incurable disease, despite the fact that many hundreds of people have cured themselves of this, because they've thought differently. Image
power is the most lethal thing ever done to any of us, because it's so easy to create an image and put it in someone else's head remotely. I mean, I could concentrate on you, Stephen, and I could start putting images in your head and make you believe that you are creating them, that they're coming up by you uniquely. And if you don't use your senses and route me out and catch me doing it to you, you'll think, because you've been desensitized, you're already shut down from using your senses, you'll think that they are your dreams, that they are your thoughts. And then I can con you into setting those images into motion.
Which is just what happens on the television every single day. They're putting images into your head, you know, and especially vulnerable children, they're just putting those images into your head. To be happy, you've got to have McDonald's, you've got to have Coca-Cola, you need the Barbie doll, you need this, that, you need more and more and more.
Entertainment.
And it's so blatant.
Trauma.
It's so blatant, it's incredible. And yet when Arthur says, Stephen, I can put images into your head, a lot of people are probably going, oh, well, that sounds pretty, you know, freaky. And yet it happens on the radio, the TV, the movies, the newspapers, the media, everything.
Microwaves.
It's just putting images into your head non-stop day and night.
And that's where they started before Egypt's civilization. It was started just like that. A man dreamt that. And that he created the sandpit. He put that into someone else's head remotely. He was part of the same tribe. I reckon that's what happened. Don't believe me. I'm only speculating. But and I always say to people, don't believe anything we're saying. Use your scrutiny. Think out. Use logic. Think it out what we're saying here. Find the lie in what we're saying. If you can, please write to us and tell us about it, because we want to learn too. Because we go where the truth takes us. We don't own it. It's a gift. And we all do that. We come to it. But the point is, it's easy for a man to put an image in your head and get you to set that into motion through belief, faith, and associated opinion. And because you're focusing on that image, giving it power, it puts you under the spell of that image, and you'll create the outcome that I intended for you, because inside that image is all the information of that outcome. And if you haven't stopped back to look at it, you'll be trapped by it. So when you look at anything, you've got to step back and look at the big picture, look at and see how does it really work. And that's why I say to people in our work, if I can get you to think what I want you to think and get you to set those images into motion through belief, faith, and associated opinion, I'll get you to create that. You know, meaning slaves willingly create a world in their master's image without realizing. Slaves willingly create a world in their master's image without realizing. And that is every system, that is the civilization that has ever existed and ever will possibly exist if we let this madness continue. Now, there's another factor thing I must point out to you here quickly too. If you allow distortion into your body, as in cooked food, lies that are aspartame and toxic chemicals and poisons, and we allow it into our body while we still dream to live, because we want to have life, we still dream for this life, your body is so deeply compromised, it's got to do something. Because on one hand, you're saying, I want to live, I want to keep living, but on the other hand, you want to destroy. You want to destroy, and the body's going, your missus is going, hang on, what's going on here? I don't know what you want to do. So, sort of, so to speak. What does the immune system do? It has to create a fever, because not that there is a center, because there's no such thing as a center, but I'll just use the analogy, the finite linear analogy of a center here. The body naturally, the immune system naturally pulls back to center a balance. So it has to create a fever. So your body will start to shake. The body will start to sweat. The body will start to have diarrhea and vomit, etc. Right? To expunge the distortion out of the body so that you, with the dreaming to continue living in the life, can happen. And if your body didn't do that, you would be dead earlier and killed by whatever sickness and disease you've allowed into your body to spread. Now, the same as the earth. The earth is who we are. We're not separated from the earth. We are the earth. We are earth. And all the distortion of our negative, destructive emotion, our negative thinking, our hatred, our indifference, our arrogance, our ridicule, our abuse, our fear, our lie, our hopelessness, our emptiness, our senses, our feeling of suicide and loss of purpose, and on it goes. All this negative, destructive emotion that we are thinking and feeling and setting into motion, and all the destruction we are causing to everything all around us while we're doing it, comes back to us as 3,000-foot tidal waves, as 300 plus mile per hour winds, as earthquakes appearing all over the place, as lava exploding out of volcanoes everywhere, as the earth shakes everywhere. Because some of us dream for the dream of life, and we love this dream of life. And we still want to experience it. We want to have our children created to experience it. We live the dream. And we're so deeply compromised that the only thing we can do is to keep loving it. And if enough of us don't wake up to take responsibility, the next thing that Earth can do, which is what we're causing, who love it, is to have an Earth fever, to wipe out 90% or more of the population of man everywhere, because they're all lost in the dead world. And that's what's about to come upon us now. This is not a fear trip. It's a consequence of our actions. There's so many of us who dream this love. We love this dream, so as us do. Right now, we've accepted the fact that not enough people are waking up. Now, we're not going to hold to that. Maybe we're wrong. But in all our Facebook debates and discussions, we have been persistently out there in the marketplace of the internet trying to get people to think about this information, get them processing it to see what's happened to us and what we've got to do to get out of this mess. But what you find, the trauma is so powerful. People still want the trauma. They think that the information in the system is going to give them a quick fix to get out of the mess. They're looking for a way to avoid the parking fine and the speeding fine, that there's a way to get around the law, to ease the pressure. They don't want to take the responsibility because they still want all the benefits and the privileges of the system. And we tell them, you can either have to take it all or walk away from it all. You can't have both, one or the other. And this applies to everything in the life. You can't have the cake and eat it too, mate. That's what we say to people. We are now at the crossroads. And at this point, I sense, and Fiona senses this, and others who have woken up sense this, we will know where we need to be to avoid the earth fever wiping us out. It is about to come. It is at our doorstep now. And we have created it by the pull of the trauma that we are reacting to. And everything that David Icke and all those we will lead every revolution against us lackeys and deceivers out there that are thousands of manipulating us are causing it. With everybody else who wakes up wanting McDonald's and fast food and banking and money and needs the next Star Trek Federation to be the new government with the cashless economy and all that stuff, is the fever coming back at us, mate.
And it's already happening if you look at the weather patterns around the world.
Not all of us created by them in the heart. The fact is this, some of us dreamed this dream so pure and sincere that there is no else but that. So which means there's no room for the distortion to exist anymore in the dream. We have to get rid of it. So when we do these videos with people like you, there's a calling out here. Wake up, guys, wake up, pull out now. Start using your senses. Don't listen to the nonsense that is all the intellectual property spinning in your head. Stop listening to everyone out there telling you how to think, feel, and act. That includes us. Use your senses. Connect with nature. Get direct experience. Get direct experience from nature everywhere around you. Walk away from third-party representation of storytelling. Quickly. I don't know. We don't have the answer exactly when it starts, because it's all impacted by the free will of all of us collectively. We are at the effect of this. But it is inevitable unless enough of us wake up to be able to take it all on and transmute it through our bodies. That love. If enough of us can sacrifice our lives for it, I don't mean death, but to give up and surrender, to take on the darkness and bring it all through our bodies and process it, we can transmute the whole thing without any earth fever. But I don't know enough of us who can do it right now. We're waiting to try and find enough people to wake up to this, to take this on. That's what it's going to take. It's not going to fall in our laps.
Well, thank you very much, Fiona and Arthur, for an excellent show. It's been really enjoyable. Excellent information. Just for some of our listeners that may not have come across you before or your work, could you sort of let them know sort of websites and maybe social networks that they can sort of, check your work out and contact?
Well, as we are going to post this up as videos, probably this one probably be broken into a few parts. It'd be quite big. We'll put the links in there in the YouTube section. But the website is love, LOVE, for FOR, life, life.com.au. And on the homepage, as you scroll down, you'll start finding all our blogs there of this kind of information that we're sharing. When you go into them, you'll find links to everything. YouTube is Arthur Love for Life, youtube.com/Arthur Love for Life. Facebook, we've got facebook.com Arthur Cristian. Just take the H out of Christian. It's Cristian, Arthur Cristian. In there, if you go to the About section, you'll find links to the other Facebook walls, but we'll provide them in the video. You'll find them on the homepage of the Love for Life website, where we have a couple of group discussions there about, one is the co-creation of Kingdom, Do No Harm Community, which is all about the mass exodus out of the system, a mass withdrawal at the local level and taking responsibility. And the other one is about all the ways of doing harm. At the moment, I'm just dumping the most important stuff into either all of those and using the Arthur Cristian Facebook wall as the main area for all our debates and discussions of those who want to challenge everything we're saying and put it to the test. And then we copy the most important ones and drop it into the Love for Life website. Sometimes Fiona and I will write articles, and in fact, that thing that I'm talking to you about, which I've been working on lately, this thing about Christianity and how the body of the information provides the trauma to get man to react to that trauma by becoming saved in the story of that trauma, so that they locks them into the spell to be used and abused by the high priests, which are black magic warlocks and witches. We're going to write that and explain it, but I'm sort of thinking we might have covered that pretty well in this video, because if you can comprehend that and you apply it to every area in our lives, you'll see the same thing over and over and over again. You've got to see this for what it is, guys. You've got to wake up to this nonsense. Walk away from nonsense. So anyway, they're the three. They're the main ones, I think. There's from there is just we have quickly should show you for all your listeners who don't watch the video. We're calling out for music producers, video producers, filmmakers, songwriters to work with us. We have a recording studio here. I don't know if you can see this, but I'll shoot the camera. Can you take the covers off? This is all gifted because we do everything through gifts. And I can't. Can you tell me? Can you see this now? Can you see the studio?
Not at the moment. It's.
Can you see? Can you see the equipment? Can you see the mixing desk?
No.
You can't see it?
No, not at the moment.
Because I can't see on the screen. Well, I won't show you. We've got a recording studio in here.
Okay.
We've got a recording studio here. We're building a whole range. We're using the dead world. And people may ask the question, why are we doing all this? I stress the point here, why we're doing it, is that it's like the system is like a dark cave. And inside the dark cave are vampires and all those who are lost to it. Can you still see us? I hope you can see us all right. And we bring a torch of light inside that dark cave, and we turn on that light, which is the body of the information that we share in the system. So we use the internet. We use the websites, we use whatever means of forums, whatever, to get the information to reach people. So now the recording studio, where we have about 100 songs to record. We're just not great engineers. We're looking for engineers to come and work with us here to help us bring this music alive that we've written, help us bring the videos alive, to help us to, as a team effort, not for us, for our worship, to help people wake up. So, we're looking for gardeners. People want to come work in the food forest garden. Because by doing all these things together, we're spreading out at the local level, because we want to make DVDs about this stuff and get it out to our neighbours and get them, if they want to watch the video, they can learn through means of not scaring them off, because we'll be able to explain it without scaring them off through things that they like listening to and enjoy hearing and seeing, to lead them into it, because, this is frightening stuff for a lot of people, as you know, Stephen. So we this is a calling out too. If you're inspired, come and work with us, guys. I mean, we can't do it remotely. We're looking for someone to come here who's a skilled engineer to come and work with us to help accelerate the process. If you're a musician and you're skilled, if you think you can do something within the kind of music, we can talk on Skype about that. Please come and get in contact with us, because that's what we're doing. Everything we're creating is just tools of light that we're bringing into the darkness to try to draw the attention of those to look at the light, so we can draw them into the light and pull them out of the darkness, right? Not to save them. They've got to save themselves. They're the ones that got to, I can't go in there and make them look at the light, but we can at least present to them the light, not the illuminated light of the satanic world, which is not the real light. So anyway, that's where we're at the moment. We work long hours, mate, in the garden, on the internet, and building this recording studio at home with professional that's been gifted by many, many people, and more to come. And if you want it, I can put the link up on that. You can see all the gear. We've got a link. You can see all the gear. We put it all up on the website, and a few other bits and pieces still to come. This is a seriously professional setup.
Brilliant.
And we're looking for people who don't take, and I must stress the point, we are not into drugs. We're not into alcohol. We're not into doing harm in any form. So we don't want to work with people who want to smoke dope and take drugs. If you still want to do that, that's fine. Stay in the trauma somewhere else. We don't want to do that. We're looking for people into clean living who've got passion and passionate and can get the energy from nature all around, right?
Well, any of the listeners that, are interested in this, they can always email us at superbdiamondrange@gmail.com, and I'll always put you in touch with obviously Arthur and Fiona in regards to it, so
yeah.
That's.
And we can put our email address up as well if you wish.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It's like we're at war, but we're not at war. This is not our war; it's their war. We're just a community immunity. We are the immune system rising up to consume and destroy everything that is a lie with love and peace and at a grassroots level, not as a movement where we're all under some kind of image power. It's just that we got to honor the uniqueness and the originality of each of us, and together we have a common dream where we must get rid of this problem so we all have the freedom, where we all have the joy, where we all have the abundance, where we all have do no harm, and where we all have no longer any education because we don't need it, and we don't have to have slaves and rulers until we no longer need the dead world, because our body can do everything. I don't know, I stress this quickly to you. We can talk to each other, Stephen, through the water of our breath now, which people call telepathy. We don't need to have the internet or Skype. We actually can use our body. When we really wake up and get back to where we were, we actually can shift our bodies through the water too. And we don't need the prosthetics of the system, which currently compensate for everything we've given up of who we are. In fact, our ancestors were 30-something foot tall from our research and what we've discovered. And the air was so full of oxygen, rich, intense oxygen, and the pollen was so rich that we were literally, our ancestors, the original man, was breatharian. Now, I'm not saying that this is hoopla, because this is scary stuff. This freaks people out and they make you think you're space cadet. It's not when you wake up and use your senses and realize how far we have fallen from that in this storytelling to this mess. So our passion is to get us back there. Now, I'm not saying we have to be breatharians. We at least get rid of the system, get rid of all the harm doing, so we are free to create our unique dreams as an original man. We're no longer under the image power of another man. So anything we do, anyone who contacts us through email, whatever, where we're coming from and why we're doing it, because this is all we're interested in. We have nothing else to live for. There is nothing for us that we live for. This is it.
Brilliant. All right. Well, once again, thanks again, guys, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege. And I hope to actually do it again in the future if you're up for that.
Oh, I'd love to.
Brilliant. All right. Well,
thank you for giving us so much room to just allow us to spread with you and in the space you've created here. It's great because it needs people like you to allow us to at least share what we've done, because I know we've got to end this, but Fiona, just so you know this is important for people to get their head around this, because a lot of people ask questions about us and our insanity, or they're claiming that we're insane and crazy and all this stuff. But Fiona agreed in 2006 to give this man permission to pull out of the system. So from 2006 to 2009, this man withdrew everything from the system. I didn't do any paperwork. There's no paperwork you have to do here. Nothing. Zilch. Right? Because no one's my master. I don't have to answer. I just stop using it. And if anyone wants to come after me, I make them process the curse. Right? That's another subject. The thing is that Fiona took on the responsibility to provide everything that this man needs to live under her roof, under her care, under her food, under her garden, because it's all in her name in the system. So I've also got supporters out there who gift us what they gift us to allow us to do this work, because all that's happened here, she gave me the space, because I spent 20 years and more stressed out in the system as a businessman, working in business, in a massive ego trip. Most of my life was an ego trip, and a massive ego, huge ego. And from the trauma of my childhood and all the suffering I went through and of sexual abuse that I had as a child. But the point I'm getting at here is that by Fiona providing me with that love and support I was free to contemplate on this very question. How did we get into this mess? What are the tactics used that got us into this mess? How are we going to get out of this mess? And how do we explain it to anyone else so they can get their head around it? You see, I didn't have to wake up and worry about a mortgage anymore, or worry about money. I was a guy that was bringing up to $4,000 a week income for nearly 20 years on and off during most of that time to nothing after the family home was being stolen and all the devastation, everything we went through. So the point of getting it is that it's true. Life is a gift. Fiona has gifted her life, hard work, labor to provided this man with the space to do the work of love for life. And in sharing the insights that have been coming and sitting there and talking with her, she's also gifting her time because she's the grammar queen. And she's the one who helps me bring into structure because I'm useless with grammar. I'm too outside the box to contain language in English. I just can't do it, you know. So she has to help me contain it in a format that those inside the dark cave can read it because that's all they know. So all these years, it's been the gift of Fiona walking the talk that's allowed this man to do this work. And this gift comes back to her because the insights that we've unraveled have given her direction, not under my image power, but gave her purpose because she now can see clearly what's happened. And so because we've argued together, and we do argue a lot because we use scrutiny, because we have to put everything up to the test to see if it's true or not. So when we appeal to your listeners and anyone who watches these videos, all you're doing, if you want to commit to this thing, is to support the dream because this is not my dream. I don't own it. I just remembered it. And anyone who wakes up remembers it because we all are the co-creators of this dream. We're all responsible. All I've done is provide the ways and means to wake up.
And the more we can learn to support each other, especially coming together as groups and communities, the more one by one we can get more of us out of the system. And this is where the group thing comes in. You know, we get a few more of us together, maybe we'll be able to have someone else who can start withdrawing their support from the system. And Arthur receives no privileges, no benefits, nothing from the system, only, you know, through me. So, you know, and once we get a bit bigger, again, we can get a few more people withdrawing. And this is how we slowly start to get out of the system. It's really hard if you're on your own to say, I'm going to have nothing of the system. But if you've got groups around you, then we can start. And that comes down to no greed and selfishness as well, because it's not some people saying, well, I want to be next. You know, it's got to just work as it works. Some of us have to support by being in the system at the moment.
Hey, Hank, you come in?
While others of us, you know, can start moving out.
You see, the point is that we can start in the suburbs where we are. Now, for example, in the street that we are in, the other houses, this is in a very quiet cul-de-sac. We're up 2,000 feet where we experience the four seasons here. It gets cold here in winter and it gets hot here in summer. We get all the four seasons here where we are in the Southern Highlands outside Sydney. We're about 70 minutes by car. I don't know if you can see Han. Can you see Han?
Hi.
If you come closer. Yeah. Hannah's in the system. She's, 24 now. She's been with us since August 2011. She wakes up and goes to bed for the dream. She works like an animal, this girl. She's out there in that garden carrying the weight of that responsibility so that we got food. Then we have to get out there and also work too when we can, because we're pulled into doing the gardening work. We're pulled on the internet to do this work and all the stuff we do because we've got to reach and wake people up. We're also pulled into creating music and everything else because everything else is to spread this out while we're working. What we're saying is there's nothing stopping another 2, 3, 4, 5 people to come together inspired to come and rent another house in the street next door or in this cul-de-sac and be in the system still, but gift all their energy of their life to the bigger picture here. And then we get another house and then another house, and we're breaking the fences down. We start breaking through, creating living food forests amongst these houses. We start changing it where we're living. We're already on land. We don't have to wait for some magic moment to go and own land to fix the problem. We can fix it right now, by our attitude. And this is what it's all about when we're calling out, mate. Is that Hans probably the first one. She is the first one who's walking the talk, but she still suffers. She's still working through all her trauma, as we do, because this is a traumatic process to break away from being self-centered, to do it. So when we talk, we also talk for Han because Han, she wakes up and goes to bed. If Fiona needs something done with the kids, she goes and does it if Fiona can't do it. If Fiona needs support in the kitchen, she does it. She carries the weight. You see, it's a team effort. She's not a slave. None of us are slaves. But we realise we've got to work hard, incredibly hard, long hours, day after day, to set into motion our freedom down the line. We're in the tunnel. We see the light of our freedom, but we see that light. We are entering that light because in the tunnel's the system. We see us coming out of that darkness into the light in this life, in present sense, because we were deeply compromised to enter into the tunnel as children. Now we're going to get out of this mess. And that's what the Steps of Kingdom is all about, and the mudroom and all the things we've written about. So when you put this out to your people and circulate, as we will do with these
Sure.
videos,
Yeah.
it's no point sitting there listening and talking to us and just turning it off. You got to do something. If you don't want to come over here and do it with us in Australia, do it there where you are. Start doing something, because this is how we counteract the earth fever. This is how we start to fix it, because your purity of sincerity, your love for the dream of life takes on the darkness, and your body will process it, because all that demonic energy, all that traumatic energy in people's body has to be earthed somehow and transmuted. So we become those beacons that earth it for people. And this is huge suffering, man. We all suffer for this. We all suffer for this. It's a price we pay because we've all been bloody deep asleep for too long. So that's it, mate. That's all I could say. And
Brilliant.
tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, this is what we're doing until we're out of this mess.
That's very inspirational, and I appreciate everything. It's been really great just hearing it. Okay, so that's good night and peace to everyone.
All the best to you, mate.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.